say anything. This one's the one where I'll shut up. And we are live. Welcome to the MLB Deeper Dive. It is Tuesday, July 5th. I don't think I knew that until right now. I am Josh Engleman. I am joined by Adam Scherer. We are brought to you by OddsShopper. We've got a 12-game MLB slate here today. Weird pitching from the breakdown that I've just had, so I'm curious to get Adam's thoughts. I have not touched this slate yet today, so this is going to be a fun lap through for me. If you haven't done it already, and judging by the likes at 28, you haven't, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you know when everything goes live. Adam, how are you today?
I'm good. Pitching is not good, like you said, and we lost one good pitcher since this morning as well, so that makes things worse. I saw somebody in chat say that he's liking bad pitchers way too much today. I'm not really sure what the alternative is, but there's a lot of bad pitchers.
Who did we lose?
Mitch White.
Okay, yeah, I don't.
And Chris Archer.
I didn't prep the slate until 3:15, so I don't. Yeah, if anything was going on in the morning, I'm not aware of it.
No, Chris Archer became whoever he became, and then Mitch White became Ryan Pepiot.
Okay. Yeah, I ran a crunch. I ran my sim crunch and then fed the dogs, and I started looking at it, and I was like, "Oh, this is going to be awful."
Oh yeah.
So that'll be fun to talk about. I should probably run my backup crunch now that we have two more lineups. I should know the answer to this already, but I don't. I've been too lazy to hunt it down, so I've just been manually fixing it. Do you know the proper names that need to be added in Fantasy Cruncher to save the Luis Garcia problem?
No.
Okay. What do you just manually fix it yourself? Do you just uncheck Luis Garcia, the hitter? Say fuck
no,
it?
I just manually change his. I just manually put his projection in. So it used
the most irritating part for me is that the pitcher gets the hitter one for me now, and the hitter gets nothing.
It matters what. It just matters what order you put them in. If you
pitcher's first for me,
right? The second thing you put in is what ends up being the projection for the pitcher.
Interesting. Okay,
and
that makes sense.
The hitter just isn't going to get a projection.
Which makes very little sense. I should message Dave and just be like, Dave, what are the names that I need to make this work?
The pitcher used to be Luis H. Garcia. I don't know if maybe that still works. But
I'm not sure.
Yeah, it's... And so also in my Excel sheet, I end up having to manually overwrite just because the way I have it set up, like I have it pulling from like one list. So it's just giving the hitter the pitcher's projection. So I have to go in and manually fix that. And then if I don't remember to go manually fix that again, the next time I do something, I'm just going to end up with that Luis Garcia projection for whoever's there.
I feel like I should just message Dave and be like, yo, can we get like Luis Garcia wash as like the same way you would upload like an MVP projection or something like that? When Luis Garcia, whatever the other team is, Houston.
Just put the H back. Like I'm guessing that it went away because he said he didn't want it there, but I really don't care. Just put it back.
Yeah. I'm going to hunt this down. Message Dave. Let me write that down. Because I think this matters and it pisses me off and I don't want to deal with it any longer. But it's one of those things that it's not a fantasy cruncher problem. Like if no one says anything, no one knows it.
Right.
Like operationally, nothing changes, but I can't take it anymore. And I upload projections, pitchers first, then hitters. So it's just wrong across the board for me when I started off. Anyway, 12 games today.
As of now.
Yeah, as of now. That's a good point.
As I watch it,
how was yesterday's slate
outside my apartment?
Yeah, a lot of potential today from a rain perspective. How did your Monday night go?
Was yesterday Monday? Normal, lost, I don't know, 50%.
That'll do it. I don't have anything else to add to that. Let's just get into it because I think this is actually an interesting slate for us to have like a real conversation about. Let me click start on this new crunch of mine, and then we're good to go. 12 games. We've got an hour and 7 minutes to do it. Certainly not going to have any hangups there. So we will kick it off. Phillies and Nats. 5.3 run implied total for the Phillies, 4.3 for the Nats. Christopher Sanchez and Paulo Espino going in this one. Neither guy pulling any ownership. this seems like one of the safer spots to just say, I'm probably not getting a pitcher here.
Yeah, that's my expectation. I don't really have any sort of a strong case I can make for either of these guys at all.
Okay. There are a lot of guys that we're going to have to talk about. So skipping the ones that are just full on basically cross-offs works for me. Certainly not a cross-off on the Philadelphia Bats side, though. Second in aggregate ownership, sixth in top stack, sixth in top value, third in stack score. They kind of just look pretty good across the board. Their top stack is good enough when there's 24 teams. Their value is good enough. And when you combine good enough and good enough, you get pretty good just in general. Ownership makes sense to me. Do you think you get to Philly?
Yeah, I like Philly here. And the ownership, even though if you look at the top stack tool, we have them with 12% aggregate ownership, and that's a decent amount on a 12-game slate. If you look at the individual hitters, you have Kyle Schwarber pulling quite a bit of that at 22%. He's popular. He should be. Nick Castellanos, Rhys Hoskins, JT Realmuto, all in double digits as well. Everybody else in this lineup is sub 10%. And you also get the interesting spot where Hoskins is 18%. Derek Hall is only 8% playing the same position. So that's one way you can just very easily get a more contrarian Philadelphia stack, is putting in Hall over Hoskins. Both guys have power. Hoskins, obviously the better hitter, but Espino gives up power to both sides. It's a good hitter spark. I like Philadelphia quite a bit.
Yeah, I have no qualms getting to Philly. They came in very, very highly ranked, in my opinion. And I don't really have a team like ultra separating from the pack. It's a wild slate tonight. I'm curious to see like where we end up after we get through all 12
when I did
games.
the show with Greg this morning, it felt like one of those where, like 3/4 of the way through, I realized that I've just said I liked every single stack.
Yeah, like there's not a lot of difference for me between Philly and like the team that I have, like the Braves, who I have 10th. Like they're, to me, not a gigantic gap. So going to be interesting for lineup construction. For the Nats, no one's owning them. They are 14th of 24 in terms of top stack. Is there anything here for Washington that's appealing to you?
So I don't think the matchup is terrible, but you still don't have Juan Soto in the lineup. Josh Bell's priced up to 5K. Nelson Cruz is at 4,500. I do think Lane Thomas leading off is a pretty solid value, but it's also a 12-game slate, so you're going to have plenty of value elsewhere. Same can be said for Maikel Franco at 2,100. So yeah, it's just on some slates, I could see making the case for Washington, but I just think there's enough teams, both popular and not popular today, that I'm going to end up getting to ahead of the Nats most likely.
I think we're in the same page here. From a cash perspective, Schwarber, Hoskins, Castellanos, Realmuto, all potentially viable for a cash game? Yeah,
I think any of those guys could potentially work.
Yeah, that all makes sense to me. $4,800 Realmuto, but you're getting a catcher. I mean, Castellanos is a $3,800 outfielder. We won't be shy of those, but $4,300 for Hoskins is great. Schwarber in a leadoff spot, in a great park, in a matchup that works for him. Certainly some options from a cash perspective. Let's move it on to, this is going to be the most fascinating one for me. I think this is my most interesting talking point. Pirates, 3.9 run implied total. Yankees, 5.2. Jose Quintana at 8K, unowned. Jameson Taillon at 10K, 4% owned. I understand that the price tag for Jameson Taillon is higher than it probably should be. I don't understand why he's 4% owned. He looks really good to me today in relationship to ownership, at least.
Yeah, I was really surprised. I'm trying to see how much I just got in. So
I have 20.
I have 3. But I think that, like, I'm with you. I think he's a good play. I mentioned him in the tournament plays video earlier too. I think there's enough value today that, like, you're probably going to be able to find cheap bats if you want to. And yeah, you're overpaying for Taillon by a little bit, but he is a good pitcher. He's in a good matchup against the Pirates. I don't have any issue with him. I think it kind of just looks like I'm just going a little bit cheaper at pitcher. Okay. I guess is what it is. I'm looking now to see where my stacks turned out. Getting a lot of Minnesota, a lot of Houston, a lot of White Sox, decent amount of Yankees, decent amount of Dodgers, decent amount of Braves. So it seems like I'm paying for bats, and that's probably going to keep me from getting Taillon a bit. But if you are going with some of these cheaper, better value offenses, Taillon, I think, is a good way to be a little bit different, because 10K is expensive for somebody with a slightly below 20% strikeout percentage, but he's easily one of the most talented pitchers on the slate.
Yeah, so I'm looking at our projections right now. So we have him at 14.2. I have him quite a bit higher than where we have him right now. I also have him ahead of Pivetta ahead of Pepio, ahead of Springs. Like, I don't have him too far behind Garcia. Honestly, I have Tyon as the second best projected pitcher on the slate. Do you think that's crazy?
You said you have him second?
Yeah. And like, obviously, a lot of these guys just look pretty similar, but
yeah, I mean, I think that's reasonable. Like, the only pitcher that I have clearly higher than him is Garcia. Everybody else is just like in that range.
Yeah. I've got it as a great strikeout matchup against the Pirates. 3.9 run implied total is the fourth lowest on the slate. Other than the fact that like he doesn't strike people out as much as you would like, it's a great park for it. Righty power dies in Pittsburgh. It's a sea of left-handed hitters. It's not exactly a great lefty power park either. I'm going to have so much more than 4% Tyon. It's crazy. Like, I'm easily going to 4 or 5x
right now, going to have around 4%, but it goes back to what we talked about, and I think you and I specifically talked about it on a show recently. Obviously, if one of us is saying like how our exposures to somebody look, that can potentially be useful, but you don't want to listen to it as just like the end all be all, because neither of us are going in saying like, oh, I am prioritizing playing Jameson Tyon. That's the most important thing to me on this slate. Everything works in conjunction with each other. So like I was basically just saying, as soon as I saw that I didn't have a lot of Jameson Tyon, that suggested to me that most likely I was getting to a lot of expensive stacks. So it's not like, oh, I have 3% Tyon, I'm saying not to play him. If you're playing cheaper stacks and you can get to Tyon, he looks like a good way to save some ownership and still have a high upside pitcher. For me right now, it's just that I'm getting to teams that I can't really fit Jameson Tyon with.
That's a perfect way to describe it. Just because we have him doesn't mean anything. Where do we have him in a top pitchers tool in relationship to ownership?
6% ownership, 14% chance of being top 2.
Okay. Obviously, his odds of being a top value pitcher are probably like 0. So
yeah, 5.
Yeah, that's even higher than I was truly expecting. Ultimately, at 4% just seems weird to me, given some of the guys that are getting that kind of ownership, or like even more than that. So sign me up for some Tyon. Whether it works out or not, who knows? I don't think we need to talk about Quintana.
I don't think so. I mean, it's a really tough matchup against the Yankees. Quintana's been solid this year, but one thing I would point out, and this goes to why I think the Yankees look good as well, Quintana does have pretty drastic splits this year. He's struck out 30.2% of lefties, only 19% of righties, 211 expected ISO to righties, sub 100 to lefties, and you're going to get a Yankees lineup where the only left-handed hitter is Anthony Rizzo.
Well, let's talk about those Yankees bats. They are number 1 in our top stack tool, 4th in aggregate ownership. Not exactly cheap to get to, but pretty clearly one of the better stacks that you can find. 5.2 run implied total, not going to hurt. And they don't exactly need a hitter's park to go yard. Massive power in this lineup. Maybe not as much as you normally see, but still really, really big. So what are you doing with New York?
Probably coming in around the field. That's the way it looks for me right now. I do think it's a good spot in terms of the matchup, but like you said, it isn't a great park to hit in. There's no shortage of good spots to get to today because there are so many bad pitchers. So I like the idea of getting to some of these power bats. Obviously, Aaron Judge and Giancarlo Stanton are capable of hitting the ball out in any park in baseball, but it's still, and this goes back to what somebody had asked, I think yesterday, about the Blue Jays playing in Oakland. Even if you are talking about the best power hitters in the league, it's still a negative because there's still some percentage of balls that would be a home run in most parks and are not going to be home runs in Pittsburgh. So it is still a negative, even if you're talking about guys that can hit the ball, 500 feet. So that's not ideal, but still do like the matchup for them against Quintana. The ownership's coming in on the Yankees. I think they're kind of just a neutral team for me.
Okay. Pirates bats, I don't get the sense that we need to talk about at all here.
Yeah, I don't think that there's much there. Tyon is, even though he's not getting a lot of strikeouts this year, still a 3.67 xFIP, still pitching in Pittsburgh here. I mean, there's some cheap bats, but there's cheap bats elsewhere too. I don't really have much reason to get to the Pirates.
Judge as a potential cash game option, but probably not all that likely.
Yeah, I think Judge is fine. Like he's kind of like the Byron Buxton play that we talk about all the time, where it's just like, yeah, if I have the money left and I play Aaron Judge, I'm more than happy.
Gleyber Torres is also in double digits in ownership for today. 4K second baseman, certainly in the realm of possibility. No other real priorities here for me. Sum it up. I say play Tyon.
If you can get to Tyon, good. If you get to some Yankees bats, cool. I think the ownership's coming in on the Yankees. I think Tyon's under owned, but again, there's some expensive offenses in good spots that are not projected for much ownership today. So right now, that's kind of where my salary is being pulled away from Taiwan.
I think that makes sense. Let me grab my most recent crunch. That way I have my most recent info. 2 games down, guys. 10 to go. Make sure you're hitting that like button. We got lots to talk about for the rest of this show. I'm excited to play the slate, too. Okay, shit
That'll
else to
last
do.
2 innings.
Oh, well, I won't care about it once it starts. I basically can't sweat anything for the first 2.5 hours, given the way that I'm playing right now. I'm just behind whoever goes crazy right out of the gate. So nothing really matters to me until 10 o'clock. Or I have to get the first 8 home runs right.
Yeah. And I mean, that's baseball in general too.
Sure. Yeah. But if you've got the team that scores 6 runs in the first inning, you're just immediately not in the cashing line. And I'm immediately just getting my ass handed to me.
Right.
There's no paying attention right now. Your Orioles taking on the Texas Rangers. 4.7 run implied total for the Orioles, 4.6 for the Rangers. Austin Voth and Spencer Howard going in this one. Voth getting no love. I don't think that he's going to be going deep enough in this game to matter. Spencer Howard, on the other hand, 7.5% owned, 5,700 on DraftKings today. And to me, a little bit under-owned. To me, he's the pretty clear best value pitcher for today. I'm curious where you land.
Yeah, he was 1.5% this morning, and I was really liking that. But in the crunch I just ran, I got almost 20% of him. It's not that he's had success in the major leagues, but this is a former top prospect. This is someone that is in 10 starts at AAA this year, averaging just shy of 5 innings per start, striking out 30.8% of hitters. The upside for him is there. And you also have a really watered down Baltimore lineup today. Austin Hayes is banged up. Ryan Mountcastle is banged up. Neither guy in the lineup. So normally when we talk about Baltimore, I talk about liking them 1 through 6, and then hoping if you're rostering a pitcher against them that they can kind of just pick up strikeouts against the bottom of the order. Here it's Mullins, Mancini, Santander, Rutschman, and then you just fall off of a cliff. Urias is okay sometimes, league average in terms of production, but Rougned Odor strikes out. Ryan McKenna is awful. Robinson Chirino strikes out. Mateo is not a good hitter. If he gets on base, he's stealing, but he's not a good hitter. So it sets up as a good spot for Howard as well. I like I like paying $5,700 for Spencer Howard. There's not good pitching on this slate. There are some solid pitchers towards the top, that are okay, like Tyon or Alex Wood or whatever. But this isn't a slate where you have legitimate aces going. This is a slate where you have the Dodgers bats, you have the Astros bats, you have the Yankees bats. I'm more than happy to just take a $5,700 Spencer Howard, hope the guy gives me 4 to 5 innings, hope he doesn't get completely destroyed, and take my chances on my bats.
Thomas Smith, if you really have been playing MLB DFS since the NBA ended and you have not cashed yet, please stop playing baseball. Or I'm begging you to sign up at at Stokastic.com. But that's a really long time to have not cashed. So long, in fact, that I think that might be a sign. What do you think? Has not cashed since basketball ended.
I just took it as hyperbole and that he had played 3 times since then or something.
I got the sense that it was more than that. But, if it's 4 times, then whatever. Ignore it. If it's been every single day since basketball ended.
I mean, that's basically, I get, if you're making any sort of competent lineup, that's impossible.
That's what I'm saying. That's why I would snap quit if I didn't cash for 3 weeks or whatever, however long basketball's been done. A long time at this point. Oof. Okay. Do you have anything you want to say about Austin Voth?
No, he's not particularly good. He's a little bit more stretched out now. 2 starts ago, he made the emergency start for Jordan Lyles. Then they ran him back out there, but nothing from a DFS standpoint.
Only played 5 times since basketball. You don't have to quit now. That's fine. You really scared the shit out of me there, man.
Yeah.
That's one of the worst losing streaks I'd ever heard of. Bats in this one, I guess we're talking Texas on the opposite
especially because
side
it wasn't
Austin
a losing
Voth.
streak. It was literally a not cashing at all streak.
Yeah, that's real bad. Real bad. Hard to do. Texas Rangers are 7th in ownership. They are 10th in top stack and 20th in top value. Do you want to get to Texas here?
I think they look pretty good. We don't have their lineup yet, I don't think, but Corey Seager is pretty much always a top shortstop option. Nathaniel Lowe is inexpensive. Josh Smith is inexpensive, assuming he's going to be leading off. Jonah Heim has some power at catcher. And Voth isn't particularly good so far this year. 205 expected ISO to lefties, 202 to righties. You do have a solid Baltimore bullpen behind him, but if you can get him out of the game early and get into the front end of Baltimore's bullpen, it's better than dealing with Felix Bautista and Jorge Lopez at the back end. Although Jorge Lopez, I believe, now has the yips, and I'm kind of concerned he's about to just fall off of a cliff. But that's beside the point. It's still a good spot for Texas. The ownership is there. There are plenty of teams that aren't getting ownership, but yeah, I like the spot.
There we go. I don't have anything really to say. Like, being seventh with 4.8% aggregate ownership isn't all that crazy to me. So, like, Seager looks good. Garcia looks good. Smith, Semien, fine. Nothing's all that interesting to me. They're even less interesting, though, on the opposite side of this one for Baltimore. Bottom of the lineup, just not helping here. Are you targeting your Orioles at all?
It's tough. I mean, Howard certainly, in his limited major league experience, he hasn't been very good. He's made 22 career starts, 28 games pitched, 80 innings, 80 and 2/3 innings. He has struck out 23.3% of hitters, which is good, but 10.4% walk percentage, 2.1 home runs per 9. He's someone that I would like to get bats against, but with Baltimore's lineup, it's just tough. Mullins, Mancini, Santander, Rutschman, all of those guys are good. But after that, the only case I can really make is, they're cheap. And if you get a really bad Spencer Howard, then fine. But this is someone that does have some talent. So I'm more likely to, I think, get to mini stacks, just get the guys individually. I do like Adley Rutschman as a catcher option at 4,600, but I'm much more likely to be getting to Howard than I am the Orioles here.
All righty. I have nothing else for this one. There are no cash options in this game that I can see.
I don't think there are. I mean, maybe Smith
Seager,
if you land there, maybe Seager if you land there, but probably going to be getting elsewhere.
No snap answers. That much I can tell you.
Yeah.
All righty. Schedule for the rest of the day. This one's pretty easy. MLB Live Before Lock coming up next on this stream. You don't have to go anywhere. Stay right here. We will flip this one over, and then you will get Eric and Greg taking you all the way up until lock. Free content for today. MLB Top Stacks. We will reference the Top Stack tool for every single team that we talk about. You guys can go see that data at Stokastic.com if you browse directly to it. And if you're playing golf this week, the PGA Top Golfers tool is available for you guys. My suggestion is to not play a guy that withdraws immediately. That will definitely help your golf lineups. Just a thought.
I'm going to try to do that this week. I'll try and keep that in mind this week.
Yeah, I'm going to do my best. Tigers and Guardians. 4.2 run implied total for the Tigers, 5 for the Guardians. Drew Hutchison and Cal Quantrill. Hutchison getting no love, not going to be going ultra deep in this game, or at least not that I can tell. Cal Quantrill, on the other hand, 5% owned, 8,300. I'm probably going to have a little bit of it because it's the Tigers. I don't like getting Quantrill, but I see it at least a little bit. I understand why he gets some love. Anything for Quantrill today?
Yeah, I'm a little bit over the field right now, but that's not something that I feel strongly about. I understand why it's happening, though. It's just a good matchup against the Tigers on a slate where there's not much good pitching. Quantrill's one of the worst strikeout pitchers on the slate at 14.6%. He's not a very good pitcher in any sense of the word, but the Tigers are really bad, and you can just run into a good game against them from time to time. So with him projected at low ownership, I understand why I'm getting some.
Okay. I don't think we need to talk about Hutchison, so let's look at the bats here. And we have a lot to talk about. Surprise, surprise, for the 100 straight day, the Tigers are like the top value stack, but we're not starting there. We're starting with the team with the most ownership on the slate. That would be the Guardians, first in aggregate ownership, third in top stack, fifth in top value. A lot of this is being carried by Jose Ramirez being 30% owned, but Quan, Rosario, Naylor, Reyes, and Jimenez are all basically like 15. So it's not just lost on the rest of the team. How do you manage Cleveland on a day like today?
So right now it looks like I am going to be getting to Ramirez and then not a whole lot of the rest of the team. I think that it's a good, what'd you say?
I'm with you on that.
Yeah, I think that it's a good spot But what I think is basically happening for me is $4,900 Jose Ramirez is just like such a ridiculously good play. And I'm still not getting quite to the field, but he's my highest owned third baseman right now in like 22% of lineups. But after that, there's just like alternatives for everybody else. Ahmed Rosario is a good option, but you also have Tim Anderson, Carlos Correa, Trey Turner, Dansby Swanson, like all these guys on the slate. Franmil Reyes is a good option, but you have no shortage of good outfielders ever. So it's a lot easier, I think, to kind of give up some of the exposure to those guys than it is Jose Ramirez, who is at a weaker third base position and is very, very clearly the top option at that position.
Sure is. I would be quite surprised if he is not the cash game third baseman.
Oh yeah, I'd be shocked.
You're probably not doing it right if you have somebody else. So just putting that out there. And clearly some of these other Guardians bats are more than viable for cash, whether that's, a $3,900 Josh Naylor, Jimenez, $3,900 at second, Kwan in the leadoff spot at $3,600. There's certainly guys that you can get to. I am not all that enamored with Cleveland though. I don't love the ownership outside of Ramirez.
Yeah, I mean, I understand why the top stack percentage is as high as it is. I understand why they're getting ownership. If they weren't getting ownership, I would be saying this is crazy. I'm just going to play tons and tons of Cleveland, but they are. So I do think that there's some of the best individual plays. And like you said, even on top of Ramirez, you certainly can be getting to some of these other guys in cash, but most of them just have enough alternatives that I'm willing to get to at their respective positions at lower ownership.
Are you willing to get to the number one value stack of today's slate?
Doesn't seem totally necessary to me. Again, maybe if I were insistent on paying for more expensive pitchers, I do think $2,500 Riley Green is a really good value, but it's still an outfielder and it's just not difficult to come by good outfield options. So if you need value, Quantrill's certainly not a good pitcher. And I think Riley Green in particular looks good, but I don't have a ton of need for the Tigers today, I don't think.
Yeah, neither do I. They don't look very good. They don't grade out very well for me. I think they're the worst team that you can get to if salary wasn't a thing. It is, but I will not be prioritizing anything from the Tigers today. 8 of the 9 bats in the Tigers lineup are sub 40 or sub 2,700. That's a lot. The only guy that's not 2,700 or below is
$5,700 Baez.
Oh, is Baez in the lineup?
Oh, no. Oh, no, you're right. I missed that. So Eric Haas, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I done the same thing this morning where, I think in the projected lineup this morning, maybe Green was the second most expensive player at 2,500, and then it was Baez at 5,700. But yeah, I mean, if the slate started right now, and again, take it for what it's worth, but if the slate started right now on DraftKings, Riley Green would be my highest owned Tiger player at 5%.
Crazy. Yeah, Eric Haas at catcher is fine too at 4K.
Yeah, he might next at just shy of 5%.
And then everybody else to me sucks. It's ugly. All right. Lots to talk about in this one. 4.7 run implied total for the Red Sox, 4.3 for the Rays. Nick Pivetta going for Boston, Jeffrey Springs going for Tampa. Basically the same ownership. Pivetta slightly more owned, even at 10,300, which is the most expensive price on the slate. He is 14% owned, getting, I guess I agree with it. Springs, on the other hand, 10% owned at 9,700. I like Springs more than I like Pivetta. Where do you land between these two guys?
Yeah, so one thing in the crunch that I ran before this show, I have Springs a little bit under projected, I think. I didn't catch it before I ran the crunch, but I do need to bump him up a little bit. I think that kind of just looking around the different sites, I think people are expecting a little bit more of a pitch count here than I am. He missed his last start in Toronto for a family medical emergency. He had thrown 102 pitches before that. We're talking about 10 or 11 days missed. Even if you discount him a little bit, he's averaged 91 pitches per start over his last 5. Even if you call it, 85 to 90 or something on average, that's not perfect, but it's plenty. And he's a very good strikeout pitcher, nearly a 28% strikeout percentage this year. The matchup against Boston is not great. It's very right-handed heavy, but that's not really an issue for Springs, who has struck out 28.5% of righties. He is getting out of Tropicana, which that's not ideal, but it's also not supposed to be warm in Boston today, so at least that works in his favor as well. I think he's kind of similar to Taillon, also similar to Pivetta, where I think they're all under-owned. I guess Pavetta's ownership's come up a bit, but I still think Springs is a little bit underowned. I think Tyone's underowned. I think Pavetta is a good option, but it really is just going to come down to, am I getting to this price tier at all, or am I just going cheaper?
Yeah, I have Springs basically doubling up that ownership projection right now. Do you think Pavetta is a better option than Tyon?
I think they're really similar.
Okay.
I have a little bit more Pavetta, but
okay. Yeah, this top section today is just really, really tough to hash out.
I mean, like
I'm definitely confident in saying that I would rather get to Springs than Pavetta. I got him in for 5 innings, by the way.
I have Pavetta the same as Springs and better than Tyon.
Okay. Yeah,
but again,
I have
from
Pavetta.
From a my lineup standpoint, I think I just end up getting, so like right now we have 17% ownership projected for Pavetta, about 10 for Springs, about 6 for
17
Tyon.
now.
What?
God, we're at 17. I didn't know we got an ownership update. That's worse than
about 6 for Tyon. I expected in the aggregate, I just end up with less across those 3 guys than the field.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, I don't think they're like easily it's easy to separate yourself from these guys. That's for sure. But I am quite a bit higher on Tyon than everybody else. We'll see if that's a good thing or a bad thing by the time we get to lock. You never know around these parts. All right, let me update everything that we have here. Good. Oh yeah, Pavetta up to 15%, Springs down to, or under 10 now. Makes me like Springs even more. Let's talk bats though. Rays are 6th in aggregate ownership, but they are 11th in our top stack tool. They just happen to be 4th in top value. Really cheap to get to this Rays team, and it's a pretty good lineup, all things considered. So do you understand the ownership that's coming into Tampa? Are you trying to target against Nick Pivetta?
I do have quite a bit of Tampa here. I understand the ownership coming in. Pivetta's, this is a really interesting spot to me. I think it's a pretty big boom or bust spot because you do have strikeouts in Tampa Bay's lineup. You do have a good strikeout pitcher in Pivetta who has struck out about 23% of hitters this year. But Pivetta throughout his career has always had good strikeout stuff, and he's been very home run prone. So far this year, he's only allowed 0.95 home runs per 9. But if you look at his expected power numbers, both lefties and righties, it seems like he's gotten pretty lucky. He's allowed a 126 actual ISO to righties this year with a 215 expected ISO. So that's like 90 points higher. And then a 148 actual ISO to lefties, 216 expected ISO. You're getting a positive park shift for Tampa Bay. You're getting reasonable pricing here. Harold Ramirez hitting second at 2,700. Yandy Diaz at 3,800. The most expensive hitter in the lineup is a Rosarena at 4,700. Then you have Franco and Paredes each at 4,200. That's a cheap price tag for Wander Franco. Paredes, it's one of the more expensive price tags we've seen, but he's been hitting for power all season long. This is a nice combination of value and upside here, getting out of Tropicana Field, going up against a pitcher that is due for some home run regression. And then on top of that, you're getting, 15% owned pitcher that if your stack does well, that's a nice chunk of the field that's losing out.
What about on the opposite side here? Not a lot of ownership coming into Boston. They're basically smack dab in the middle of the pack, 17th in top stack, 18th in top value. I like Boston a little bit more than the ownership shows right now. If we're going to get these guys, a bunch of these guys in single digits, that seems fine to me. Do you like Boston? Do you like them more than the Rays? This whole game is just weird.
Yeah, I mean, I'm getting a little bit more Tampa in the aggregate, but I'm over the field on both teams right now just because it's I guess I would say I like Tampa more in the sense that it's much easier for me to explain why I like Tampa. Like I can point to Nick Pivetta and say I think he's going to start giving up home runs sooner than later. Jeffrey Springs, I think, is good and better than Pivetta. And it's not a spot that I can look at it and say, oh, I really like the matchup for the Red Sox. But I do really like the ownership that the Red Sox are getting, or lack thereof, when you have a team that has the power that this team has with JD Martinez, Bogarts, Trevor Story. You have Ref Snyder hitting second at a cheap price tag. I do like getting to the Red Sox at their current ownership.
Are there any cash options for you on either the Boston side or the Tampa side?
Wander Franco's underpriced. I doubt he ends up being the cash shortstop, but maybe. Same goes for Harold Ramirez. He's clearly underpriced, but it's also an outfielder, so I kind of doubt you end up needing him. But I wouldn't be shocked, I guess, if either of them ended up making it in as the last guy.
Taking a look at shortstop right now. Son of a bitch. Eat shit, Luis Garcia. I'm screwing this damn filter up. Ahmed Rosario, 4,700 is the highest owned shortstop, I believe. Trey Turner at 11%. So at least from a shortstop perspective, you can probably justify kind of anyone. Like,
Yeah,
obviously
like
not
Rosario,
anyone,
I think is
but
where
like,
I would.
there's like 10 real names.
I think I would like to get to Rosario.
Yeah. Well, I think Franco works, Seager, Correa, Turner, Franco, Adames, Bogarts, Tim, like a lot of these guys are going to be relatively similar when you bring salary into account. Right. There's not an obvious one today.
The way I see it, I think Rosario is the shortstop that I would want. But if the $500 from Rosario to Wander Franco opens up something else that I really want, I don't care. I'll just take Wander Franco.
There you go. I don't have anything else for Boston. Just feels like a game where you have all four sides, both pitchers, both sets of stacks.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think it's right now it's just looking much more like an offense game.
Yeah. Okay.
But again, that's because I'm not really paying in the Springs price tier. I do think he is under owned.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, at the very least, you understand why Pivetta is 15 and Springs is 10, and like ownership is coming in. Yeah. Nothing else here. Let's go to Braves and Cards. 5.2 run implied total for the reigning, defending, undisputed champs of baseball. 4.4 for the Cardinals. Ian Anderson and Andre Payante going in this one. Anderson is 10% owned right now, 8,500. Sure, this is a Cardinals team that doesn't strike out all that often. I did not get to this much Anderson in this range. Not like super fond of him. In the grand scheme of things, I'd rather just like flip-flop the ownership between Anderson and Quantrill, but at the same time, like I don't really care about either one of them.
I don't even want to talk about how much Ian Anderson I have in this crunch.
Really? I would like you to, because I don't understand it.
Him and Luis Garcia are my highest owned pitchers right now.
Is there like another Anderson where you're getting his projection instead?
No.
Did you add the two hitters and pitch? Well, like the Luis Garcia one's real.
Okay, hang on. This might actually be good.
I'm fascinated by what's about to happen right now. I'm waiting for you to be like, oh, I hard-coded his projection to 44.
No, never mind. I thought I had a much lower ownership projection on him, but I don't. Yeah, I mean, he just projects similarly to most of the other pitchers. He's not getting that much ownership. It looks like a lot of the Yusei Kikuchi moved to Ian Anderson for me. It looks like a decent amount of Michael Kopech moved to Ian Anderson. I think it's kind of just that he just started pulling ownership from like all of the other popular pitchers in that range. I don't feel good about it. I hope it changes. I don't want this much Ian Anderson. The matchup sucks. He hasn't been good this year. He's only striking out 20 or 19.5% of hitters. In previous years, he had better strikeout stuff, but 4.38 xFIP this year, 19.5% strikeout percentage, 11% walk percentage. I don't want this much Ian Anderson, but I am getting to a lot of him.
Yeah, I'm not going to get to him. He showed up less than the current expected ownership. This is a guy that I'm going to have like 5% of. I'm going to get to more Kopech. I'm going to get to more Quantrill. Wood, Garcia, Kikuchi is a complete different conversation for when we get to it. The thing for Ian Anderson is there's not really a lot below him. That gap between like Spencer Howard and Quantrill is only filled by Yusei Kikuchi and then like a bunch of guys that probably aren't all that interesting. So in a way, I get it. He's sort of the floor if it's not Cal Quantrill, but how much Ian Anderson?
I mean, my third highest owned pitcher is cheaper than him.
Is it Howard?
Yeah.
Wait. Your third highest owned pitcher is cheaper than Ian Anderson.
Yes.
Is it Howard?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Whew. I didn't know if you were about to be like, I'm a big Greinke guy tonight.
No, I mean, I do have 9% Tyler Gilbert right now, but that's a totally... God, my pitching today is bad.
Yeah. Did you accidentally like paste over something?
No, I mean, this is kind of... Not that I expected 40% Ian Anderson, and again, I hope that changes. I had said at the very top of the strategy show with Greg this morning, I enjoy slates like this because I am perfectly willing to just play more than the field on a bunch of bad pitchers and hope that the couple of pitchers that are slightly less bad and getting 10 times the ownership happen to not pitch well.
I mean, Tyler Gilbert's like my third lowest projected pitcher. That one was a name that I didn't expect you to say out loud.
Yeah. I have him at like 10.5 points.
I have him at 8.3. Either way, this is just a pile of shit at the bottom. We don't have to talk about Payante, so let's talk about the Braves bats. 8th in aggregate ownership. 8th
Oh, you don't
in
want to
top
talk about my
stack.
4th highest owned pitcher?
Shut up.
No, I'm kidding.
I looked at it for a second. And I was like, man, I didn't even get him.
Yeah, I actually don't think I did
either. So Atlanta ends up twice as owned as this, or is today a different day?
Yesterday, I don't think they ended up getting that much ownership either.
They sure did.
Did they?
Yeah.
I mean,
like they got a lot more than what was projected. That much.
Maybe it was just I didn't get a lot of Atlanta yesterday. Maybe that's what it was.
Yeah. I did, which ended up being neutral.
But yeah, I think Atlanta looks fine here. I don't mind getting to them. Payante's been very, very good at getting ground balls, but he also doesn't strike guys out. And I just like taking power teams against guys like this because, yeah, you're going to have your share of games where you're going to have your share of games where he just gets a bunch of ground outs. But with most major league pitchers, you're going to have your share of games where they do well because major league pitchers are really, really good. And it's really hard to hit. I like taking power bats against guys like this because he's not missing bats. So if he's not locating well, it's going to get really bad for him really quickly. Whereas guys that have good swing and miss stuff just have a bigger margin for error. So I do like getting to Atlanta here, even though Payante has been very good at getting ground balls.
43% projected aggregate, 80 total in the relay throw last night. So about double. Not that not that any of the numbers got crazy. Like, what's the best example? Like Matt Olson went from 6 to 10. Austin Riley went from 6 to 11.
Yeah.
Michael Harris ended up being the biggest problem. Projected 1.6. He was 12% owned.
Oh, that's a miss.
But
I enjoy when people.
Would you expect Michael Harris being 12% owned in the 9 hole in that spot? Because
that's weird. I thought he was a good play, but not 12%.
He's the second most owned Braves bat.
The ownership probably changed after lock. I always enjoy when people use the word probably to mean definitely did not.
Yeah, I know one thing for certain. That didn't happen. So anyway, we talk Braves bats here. I have mild interest, nothing too crazy. Clearly there's really good bats there. Do you have interest in the Cardinals against Ian Anderson based on your exposures? My guess is no.
Apparently not. You should. I apparently don't.
I mean, I have a little. I have them because they're not owned.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You're getting a really good offense that isn't going to get much ownership against a pitcher that really hasn't been good this year. So, yeah, I mean, I think you should have interest in the Cardinals. I apparently do not at the moment.
I have the Cardinals based on Steamer with a higher aggregate WRC plus than the Braves in this matchup. Not as much power by a long shot, though. I got a little bit of interest in St. Louis. Nothing to write home about. They were 14th for me in my rankings, so I can't exactly go crazy about it.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing.
I got nothing else here.
Even with Anderson's struggles this year, there's so many pitchers on this slate that are worse than him. I just always like the idea of St. Louis at low ownership if I can get it.
Anything else in this game?
Nope.
Alrighty then. 6 games up. We got 6 more to go. Lots of stuff to talk about. If you haven't done it yet, hit the like button, everybody. That number looks pretty low. 740 concurrent viewers, just 115 likes. We're going to take baby steps to work our way up past 200. So now I need 150. Hit the thumbs up if you haven't done it yet. And if it gets to 150 really quickly, that doesn't mean you don't have to do it. Just, still do it anyway. Sponsor of this show for today, Odds Shopper. I do this spiel basically every day, and I couldn't be happier to do it because it really is the best thing that I can give you guys. If you're sports betting, this is the thing that you should be using. You should be shopping around. If you don't shop around lines, you're leaving money on the table. You're only hurting yourself. Why would you want to do that? I have no idea. You can shop around. If you want to put these bets in, you got to go to our player props section because we're showing you the projections. We're showing you the expected ROI. We're showing you the expected win rate. And it's all free. All you got to do is just sign up with an email address. I'm not asking for too much here, but you get gigantic benefits across the board, and it costs you absolutely nothing. The worst thing that should happen for you right now is nothing at all. The best case scenario, you save yourself money on some bets, and you get some additional winners because of what we post. Just go to oddshopper.com and check it all out. 6 more games to go. Let's keep this bad boy moving. Brewers and Cubs, 4.6 run implied total for Milwaukee, 4.3 for the Cubs. Jason Alexander and Kyle Hendricks combined to get 3% of total ownership, and that's probably good for me.
I hope that's good for me. I'm double checking. I don't want either of these guys.
Yeah, given the bullshit you've been spewing in this show so far today, I assume you've got a shit ton of Jason Alexander.
2% of each.
Yeah, look at you go. I mean, you're correct. Neither one of these guys looks particularly good today, so I don't really want to say anything else.
Yeah, I mean, neither pitcher looks good. Both offenses have power. Jason Alexander does not strike out anyone. Very, very good at getting ground balls. He's like a worse version, I think, of Payante, where he's going to strike out even less guys. He's not as good at limiting power. Lefties in particular, against Alexander this year, 200 actual ISO, 289 expected ISO. Righties have been basically non-existent in the power department. But on the other side, Hendricks, just not getting enough strikeouts going up against a power hitting Milwaukee team. I have trouble getting either pitcher.
We've got the Brewers 9th in aggregate exposure. We've got the Cubs 15th, but given that giant gap, there's not as big of a gap in our top stack odds. Cubs at 4%, Brewers 3.2. That's basically negligible. Which side of this game do you like more from an offense perspective?
Right now, I'm not getting to either one. I do prefer the Milwaukee side, which actually, no, I'm getting to more of the Cubs than Milwaukee. I misread that, but I think the Milwaukee side is appealing because they have more power. I think the pricing on the Cubs side is a little bit better. I mentioned it, though, that righties really haven't hit for any power so far against Alexander. So if you are taking Cubs bats, you're kind of just hoping that turns around, which it probably will. He doesn't project as anybody that's likely to be good in the major leagues. He's like 29 years old, just now getting his first chance. But those ground ball numbers are really, really good. But you do have, some power. I like Ian Happ a ton individually. You have Suzuki back. So that's another power bat in this lineup. Wisdom has power. Nico Horner is one of their better hitting prospects. So I'm getting to the Cubs, I think, because they're a little bit cheaper. I do like the left-handed power, particularly for Milwaukee, though. Rowdy Tellez looks pretty good. Christian Yelich leading off looks fine. But again, these guys are just priced up a little bit.
Okay. No cash options in this game that I can see. Anything for you?
No.
Okay. Just a game that probably doesn't exist all that much for me, and I'm cool with that. A lot of games that we could just write off. This isn't one of them. Astros and Royals, 5.1 run implied total for the Stros, 3.3 for the Royals. Luis Garcia going for Houston. Zach Greinke going for Kansas City. Greinke pulling no ownership. Please don't roster him. And if you tell me that you are, just get off of the show. Luis Garcia, on the other hand, is pulling a crisp 46% ownership right now. 25% of all of the ownership going out to pitchers today on DraftKings. I think it might be a little high, but he's very clearly the best pitcher on the slate for me.
Yeah, agreed. And it's a good spot to answer your question. No, I am not getting to Greinke. I am getting to the Astros. I think they're going a bit under-owned here. It's a very good spot against Greinke. Their projected ownership has come up since earlier. So I guess I'm not getting to as much as I probably would have if I had made lineups a couple hours ago, but still a really good spot against Greinke. He is just really bad at this point in his career. Against lefties this year, a 7.8% strikeout percentage going up against a lineup that has Yordan Alvarez and Kyle Tucker. That seems problematic. Against righties, the strikeout percentage is all the way up to 15%, but also a 245 expected ISO. That's a full 100 points higher than his actual ISO allowed to righties so far. And there's plenty of right-handed power in this lineup as well. So really like getting to the Houston bats. And then Luis Garcia, I do think he's going over-owned, but he just projects as better than everybody else. So still getting there. Right now we have him at like 48% ownership. I have like 42%. I assume I'm just going to be around the field on Garcia. It is a good spot against Kansas City. He's clearly the best combination of talent and matchup on this slate, where he has a 25.7% strikeout percentage. That's ahead of every starting pitcher today, except for Jeffrey Springs and Yusei Kikuchi, not including Spencer Howard because of his limited sample size. But that's ahead of basically every pitcher. 3.68 xFIP is better than Kikuchi. It's not as good as Springs, but he's also not facing the Red Sox. So I think he's pretty clearly the best combination of matchup and talent.
Yeah, I'm just going to end up with whatever I end up with for Garcia. Like, I don't have a great feel for it. Sometimes this ends up being like relatively neutral. Sometimes it ends up where this type of guy is in like 80% of what I do, but I have no problem saying that he's the best option on the slate. Don't have to talk about Greinke. You already touched on the Astros bats, 13th in aggregate ownership, 8th in top stack. I just have some interest in getting to more Houston than this because Greinke stinks.
Yeah, and I will say right now, like looking at my individual Houston hitter exposures, there's nobody that stands out as like being in a ton of my lineups, but it's kind of just like across the board. I'm getting in that, like 5 to 10% range on these guys. So they end up coming out as one of my higher owned stacks just because of the number of guys that are getting some form of exposure.
There are no Royals bats that we could talk about, correct?
I don't think so. I'm not sure if I even have one.
MJ Melendez shows up in my lineups from time to time because he's a catcher, and that helps. Bobby Witt would obviously be a guy that you can roster. I would get away from most of this pretty quickly. And Vinny P, I know he donged a couple days ago. I don't expect him to dong here.
Yeah,
lowest implied total
just
on the slate.
Just scrolling through by position, I haven't noticed they can't. Oh, I have a lineup with Andrew Benintendi, it looks like.
There you go. That's the winner right there.
Yeah.
All righty, to White Sox and Twins we go. 4.8 run implied total for the White Sox. One thing that I want to say quickly, based on the Astros Royals game, Luis Garcia is just one of the cash pitchers. There is no way around that, correct?
Yeah, without a doubt.
Okay. White Sox and Twins, 4.8 run implied total for the Sox, 4.3 for the Twins. Michael Kopech going for Chicago. Josh Winder going for Minnesota. You're not rostering Winder today, or at least I'm not. Who knows what Adam's going to say at this point. Kopech, on the other hand, 17% owned at 8,800. And for the most part, I think that he's like properly-ish owned. I don't really have like a hot take here.
Yeah, I think it's pretty much correct. I have him at like 12% right now, but again, that's kind of just give or take. He's one of the more talented pitchers, at least in terms of his stuff. It hasn't really translated into a ton of success so far, though. Only a 23% strikeout percentage this year, which is fine, but it's not what Michael Kopech was expected to be. 11.5% walk percentage is high. 4.75 xFIP isn't great. And it's a relatively difficult matchup against Minnesota as well. There are some weather concerns here, too, so keep an eye on that. But assuming that the weather cooperates, it's not a great matchup. I think the ownership, though, given the lack of talent elsewhere on the slate, makes sense. For Josh Winder, I don't have anything.
Okay. Yeah, there's nothing here for Winder as far as I'm concerned. Whoops, accidentally minimized the chat, which honestly is probably a good thing. Sorry, chat. Hit that like button, by the way. You didn't get to 175, so I am going to continue to talk my crap about you guys until you get up to that 200 mark. That's the new goal. 200 likes. Got 100 or 765 people in here. Should be easy. White Sox are 10th in aggregate ownership. Twins are 14th. They are next to each other in top stack, barely separated at all. Which one of these teams is a better option to you?
I have a lot of both.
Okay. I think that's reasonable. A lot of power in that Twins lineup.
Yeah, similarly owned, similar top stack percentages. Chicago a little bit higher, but yeah, I'm getting a good amount of both of these guys. Buxton, my highest owned outfielder. Robert, my fourth highest. Kepler and Kirilloff, fifth and sixth. Pollock's like eighth, getting to some sheets. So I'm getting to quite a bit of this team. Buxton actually my highest owned player right now, other than Jose Ramirez. So Tim Anderson, my third highest owned player. So the case would just be that it's a good matchup for the White Sox, and there's a lot of reasonably priced hitters that have power here. Tim Anderson's back to 5K after his brief stint at 4,400, but Andrew Vaughn's still relatively inexpensive. Luis Robert at 5,100 still fine. Abreu is fine at 4,400. Then you start getting value though with Gavin Sheets hitting fifth at 2,700, Moncada at 2,900. On the other side, Kopech has in particular struggled with left-handed power this year. His expected ISO is 100 points higher than his actual ISO to lefties. His strikeout numbers are better against lefties. He's just been a really weird pitcher overall. Much higher strikeout percentage against lefties, but he is giving up more power, at least in terms of expected numbers. Assuming you're going to have Kepler, Polanco, Gordon, Kirilloff in this lineup, Arise is just a good left-handed hitter overall. And then from the right side, Byron Buxton, Carlos Correa, you can always play those guys. Gary Sanchez, always one of the better power-hitting catcher options too. So I just really like getting to hitters here, assuming this game plays.
Same. So do I. I have both teams looking positive from a leverage perspective. I have both teams looking like teams that I'm going to get to a little bit more than the field is showing. So I don't have much else to say here. I'm more interested in the bats than the arms, and I will have at least a little bit of Kopech. 3 games to go here. One last thing to talk about. And you know what? We're going to do 2 last things to talk about. You guys hit that like button first, get up to 200. We'll start it off by just saying this. If you want to subscribe at stokastic.com, you use the promo code MLBDD. And I'm going to let you know right now, I don't know if I'm supposed to do this, but I'm doing it anyway. This deal is 50% off your first month of Stokastic plus Platinum. Man, I can't wait till the day where that just actually stops. 50% off your first month. If you don't do this today, there's a decent chance you don't get this deal tomorrow. Wink, wink. So if you're on the fence about trying to check out a 50% off month of Stokastic plus Platinum, maybe take advantage of this today and use that promo code MLBDD. One big word, all caps. Probably find that link in the description, or just look at the screen with the big MLBDD letters and then type it in when you get to stokastic.com. Not the only good deal, however, but do that one first. Shouldn't take you very long. Now come back and do this one. BetMGM. You want to get basically free money? I'm pretty sure you do. Most people do. Bet $10 on any MLB money line tonight. You will win $200 for free. That's simple. Video description. You will find a link. All you have to do is bet $10 at BetMGM. If you have not signed up at BetMGM yet, you should do this immediately. Why would you not want $200 free dollars? There's no other way to say this. This is the perfect opportunity for you guys to use OddsShopper, which we touched on earlier. 50% off your first month of Stokastic plus Platinum. Son of a bitch. 50% off Stokastic plus Platinum if you use MLBDD. BetMGM, 200 free bucks. I'm bringing all the good deals. The least you guys could do is hit that like button as we get up to 820 people. Couldn't be any better, guys. You just got the goods. Listen to me here. 3 games to go. Diamondbacks and Giants.
Man, I timed that whole thing perfectly. I just didn't hear a word you said, and I came back in time for you to be talking baseball again.
I do great reads. Diamondbacks and Giants. Tyler Gilbert, Adam's favorite pitcher, going for Arizona. Alex Wood going for the Giants. Gilbert pulling a crisp 2% ownership. Alex Wood, 24. I assume you want to start with Gilbert?
I don't have anything positive to say about him. If you're watching this, you probably shouldn't play him. He's just showing up for me because he's not owned. He's cheap, and I'm playing 150 lineups. Like, this guy is not somebody that you should be playing. 56 major league innings, 17% strikeout percentage, 5 xFIP. Tough matchup. Yeah, hopefully I get 0. Right now I have more than 0, but it's not somebody that you should actually be playing.
210 likes. You guys are the absolute best. We're really going to shame this live before Lock Crew coming up next. Talk to me about Alex Wood, 24% owned. I mean, we're clearly just going to be looking at his ownership in relationship to everybody that's around him, because that's sort of where everything is concentrated right now. I like him. I think I prefer Springs by a little bit. I certainly prefer Springs because of the ownership, but I'm just curious, like, where do you ultimately come in here on Wood? A complicated day.
Yeah, he seems similar to Luis Garcia to me in that I'm probably just going to end up around the field. I had 17% in the crunch I just ran, made him my 4th highest owned pitcher. He's good. He is getting out of San Francisco. He's facing an Arizona team that isn't great offensively, but does have a lot of right-handed bats in their lineup. So far this year, Wood has struck out 21.6% of righties compared to 26.1% of lefties, 181 expected ISO to those righties. He's not safe, but he is one of the better pitchers on the slate and facing one of the more questionable lineups on the slate. So he has that working for him. I don't have a strong feel on him one way or the other, but I'll probably end up around the field.
Yeah. He just looks like, I don't want to say like properly owned, because I think it's a little high, but at the same time, like, he's clearly one of the guys that should be around 20% ownership. And I understand what the field is doing. Yeah. What I end up with, I don't have a damn clue how to sift this through now before I actually get started. Bats here. Talking about a big one. 5th in ownership for the Giants, 3rd in top stack, 3rd in top value. Austin Slater and Darren Ruff, though, the only guys that are in double digits that I see, at least as of right now. We'll see. I don't think we have a Giants lineup yet. I think they look pretty good because I'm not all that enamored with Tyler Gilbert, and a 5-run implied total seems like I should get to San Francisco, particularly in Arizona. What are you doing with the Giants?
Yeah, I think that they're a good stack. I mean, they're going up against the really talented Tyler Gilbert, but no, I mean it's a good matchup for them. I'm not getting too much on DraftKings right now. I did think they looked better on FanDuel earlier, just because they're really good values and they weren't pulling quite as much ownership. The one negative with San Francisco, we talk about all the time, especially when they're facing left-handed pitchers, is that you do run pinch hit risk with some of these right-handed bats as the game goes along. But one, that is accounted for in projections. And two, if you get them really lighting up Tyler Gilbert out of the gate, that does lower the pinch hit risks later on, because there's no reason to pinch hit with Jock Peterson up by like 9 runs. You're just not going to bother doing it. So it is still a good spot. I do think that the Giants look good. The ownership has come down a little bit as well on DraftKings, so maybe I will end up. Or nope, I'm looking at FanDuel, so that's why. On DraftKings, we have so it has come down a little bit, but still around 8%. I think they look good. I personally didn't get a ton in the crunch I just ran, but I don't have any issues if I do.
Okay. I guess
I think
Slater
we
and
all know
Ruff
that I
are
do
both.
better ad reads than both of you guys.
I'm sure that's wildly untrue. Slater and Ruff are probably like mildly viable as cash options just because of those price tags.
I doubt that I
need on Ruff.
Yeah, I mean, I doubt that I need either one, but they are cheap.
Yeah. And then there's nothing on the Diamondbacks that I am advocating for outside of, I guess, $2,100 Jordan Luplow in the leadoff spot.
In tournaments, I think that's fine.
Yeah, I'm not. That wasn't a cash comment. I don't want to complicate any matters there. Don't
Larry
play the
C said
Diamondbacks
Adam was
in
looking
cash.
at FanDuel. What's going on? To be clear, I still had the Top Stacks tool open to FanDuel from when I had recorded my video earlier. It was not an intentional thing.
Yeah, you got to remember. I assume you made a FanDuel deposit so you can play until that goes away.
Actually, yeah, and it's a new month now, so I could add more, but I've already just not been playing there because I just hate that site.
Ouch. Shots fired.
I played a good 1.5 to 2 weeks though before I just said I don't feel like dealing with this.
The Oakland A's taking on the Toronto Blue Jays, 3.7 run implied total for the A's, 4.9 for the Jays. Adrian Martinez and Yusei Kikuchi. Martinez is 4% owned, and that would normally be interesting to me because I don't think he should be, but we got to talk about Kikuchi here. 7,800 in this matchup against a not very good offense with quite a bit of strikeouts in it and not a lot of power in a great park. Yusei Kikuchi is the second most owned pitcher today. Does that make sense to you?
Yes and no. It makes sense because he projects relatively well. He's really cheap. The biggest concerns that you have for him are how much power he gives up, or the biggest concern you have for him is how much power he gives up. Second is the really high walk percentage as well. But pitching in Oakland does help to mitigate the power because you're not getting warm weather. You're getting a massive ballpark. You're getting a team that doesn't have a ton of power, although the middle of the order can certainly still do some damage with Laureano, Bethancourt, Murphy, Piscotty. But, Pinder has some power too, hitting 7th. But it's just a situation that I think, at least on paper, mitigates a lot of your concerns with Kikuchi. And he is good at getting strikeouts. He has the second highest strikeout percentage, excluding Spencer Howard, behind only Jeffrey Springs on this slate. So I get why he's getting the ownership, but it also just ends up being a situation kind of like I had mentioned before, and like I mentioned with Greg this morning, where I'm just not going to be that scared of getting beat by Yusei Kikuchi. If Yusei Kikuchi goes out there at 40% ownership or whatever he's at, 36.5%, and puts up 28 fantasy points that I can't make up somewhere else, then so be it. I lose. But I think that you're going to have an easier time winning probably by just waiting for those games where Yusei Kikuchi scores 12 fantasy points and hoping that all of the other random shit I'm throwing out there at pitcher ends up beating him.
I'm obviously going to get Kikuchi. I'm going to get less than the field. I know this. This is probably a spot where Tyon soaks up a little bit more and I pay up to be mildly contrarian. Garcia Kikuchi is the cash combo, though, correct?
I would think so. I haven't built a cash lineup yet, but I assume that's where I'm going.
Yeah. Obviously, you could always get more expensive than Kikuchi if that's how it shakes out. But right now, it could be Garcia Wood. But for right now, I'm guessing that it's Kikuchi Garcia as the preferred cash option. So there's that. Do you have anything you want to say about Martinez?
He's in 6% of my lineups right now. There's nothing that makes me like want to get to him. He does have a 26.5% strikeout percentage at AAA this year. You can ignore most of his run prevention numbers because of the league that he pitches in, but doesn't project to be a great major league pitcher either. Doesn't have a good matchup against the Blue Jays. So it's another one where it's like he's in some lineups for me because I happen to be playing 150 and he's not going to be popular. So I can just throw him into random lineups occasionally, but nothing that I would actually point to as a good reason to play him.
I don't get the sense you're going to Oakland, but does the Kikuchi ownership open any of that up to you?
It certainly makes them a little bit more appealing. I'm not getting to a lot. I do have a little bit of Bethancourt, a little bit of Murphy. I think Laureano is a decent option, but obviously there's a million good outfield plays. It does, in theory, make them a little bit more appealing just because they do negatively correlate. But the slate's also big enough where, and Kikuchi, he's not expensive, but he's also not 5K. Like if he gives up 4 or 5 runs, you're going to be pretty happy that you don't have him and also not upset at all that you don't have the A's.
Yeah. Blue Jays side. 19th in ownership, 5th in top stack. Am I missing something here?
I thought I would get to more, but I didn't.
Really? Okay. So not paying up for Tyon, not paying up for the Blue Jays. You just got to get... That's all that Tyler Gilbert shares.
Yeah, no,
I mean, I'm going to have way more of the Blue Jays than 1.5% in the aggregate. That much I can tell you.
I have 0.3 right now.
That is fascinating. Obviously, you'd be more than okay with getting some additional Blue Jays.
Yeah. It's not a, for me, it's not a, I don't like the Blue Jays. I think there's anything wrong with going to the Blue Jays. It's just, there's a lot of stacks that I like, a lot of teams that I like. They ended up not really getting pushed up here. Like the only negative is that they are playing in Oakland. But yeah, it's just that I kind of got Houston pushed up a little bit more. I got Atlanta pushed up a little bit more. I got the Yankees pushed up a little bit more. Already mentioned getting a lot of Minnesota, Chicago. I have more Dodgers. Only so many lineups.
Are they our most positive leverage team today? I assume you have that in front of you.
On DraftKings, yes.
Okay.
I don't know about FanDuel.
Fair enough. Obviously, Bichette, Guerrero, there are a lot of bats in the Blue Jays lineup. Also, if you're one-offing, don't be mad. There you go.
Yeah.
Number 1 leverage stack for today. As we get to the final game of the slate, 239 likes, 900 viewers. Yo, we are killing this shit today. Keep hitting that like button, baby. How high can we make this number before it gets to live before lock? 5.3 run implied total for the Dodgers, 3.6 for the Rocks. Ryan Pepio and Herman Marquez going in this one. Pepio 5% owned. Marquez not owned. Start with Pepio. How do you feel about him? To me, under-owned. I just prefer Tyon, but still like him.
I don't like the price tag at 9,900.
Same.
But
yeah, it's just
I think he's still in that
weird
range with the other guys. What?
Are you getting to him?
No.
Okay. Do you prefer Springs to him?
Yes, but didn't really get to him either.
Okay. So you're really just not in those first couple. Like Garcia is your ceiling for the most part?
Pretty much, yeah. Like,
okay.
At least right now, it's Garcia, and then it's, obviously the Andy Anderson, Howard, Wood, Quantrill, Kopech, Gilbert, Pivetta, Kikuchi, Sanchez, Martinez, Tyon. It's just a lot of taking shots at those mid-range guys.
Herman Marquez?
I'm not getting too much.
The Dodgers.
Yeah, it's a brutal matchup against the Dodgers. It's nice that you're getting him out of Coors Field, but still pretty tough to get to.
Let's definitely talk about the Dodgers bats. 3rd in aggregate ownership, 6th in top stack percentage. How do you feel about these LA Dodgers, the basically NL All-Star team taking on Herman Marquez?
Yeah, pretty much. It seems like for me that I'm mostly just getting Mookie and then some Trey Turner. The Mookie Betts price tag is just broken at 4,400. So like he's my second highest owned outfielder behind Buxton right now. That makes sense to me. Trey Turner is my 5th highest owned shortstop at like 9%. That makes sense to me. Not getting a lot of the rest of the Dodgers. They are getting some ownership with Will Smith and Freeman and Muncy. But I'm not. I have like 7% Will Smith, so I'm getting a little bit of those guys, but not as much as the field. Marquez is still, I think, a decent pitcher, even though he hasn't been quite as good even outside of Coors this year as he normally is. But to me, the Dodgers just kind of look neutral.
Okay. Cash bets, bets, obviously. That's about as easy as it's going to get. But if you get to Turner, Freeman, Smith, Muncy, I think all of those guys are viable. Is there anything viable on the Rockies side?
I don't think so. I mean, these guys suck outside of Coors.
They sure do. 12 games up, 12 games down. We have a little over 2 minutes to go before we hit 6 o'clock. So I'm going to get you to sum it all up, and then we're going to get the hell out of here so that I can go pee. Who are your favorite pitchers for today?
Mine would be Luis Garcia, Alex Wood, and Yusei Kikuchi. My models, or not even model, my processes at the moment are Luis Garcia, Ian Anderson, and Spencer Howard. I can't even recommend the Ian Anderson thing, but like I have a lot right now. I hope it changes. If he gets lit up, I didn't tell you to play him. If he pitches well, just know that I'm winning every tournament probably.
Luis Garcia, Jamison Taillon, Kikuchi, and Springs are my 4 highest ranked pitchers. Taillon and Springs definitely look a little bit better in larger field GPPs for me. And then stacks. Who are your favorite stacks for today?
I like both sides of the White Sox game if that plays. I like Tampa Bay. I already mentioned Minnesota. So I like Tampa Bay. Getting to some Boston too, even though I do have a lot of respect for Jeffrey Springs.
Anything else you want to touch on?
Hope my pitchers change.
We are done here, folks. Don't go anywhere. MLB Live Before Lock coming up next. You get Eric, you get Greg, and you guys got to 267 likes. You gave them a great base. Hit that number up. Show them 300 likes as they get in the door. Good luck tonight, everybody. Have some fun. Back again tomorrow doing it all. Peace.
All right, here we go once again. Good morning. What's up, everybody? Tuesday, July 5th. I am Ben Razza. This is Odd Chopper, and I'm here to bring you my favorite bet of the day across the sports world, from baseball to tennis to whatever we got, dug into the lines, and I have a pick here that we're going to try to cash a ticket with. Now, I hope, first of all, everyone enjoyed their July 4th. If you were out doing things, eating burgers, partying, you missed what was an absurd comeback by the Milwaukee Brewers. That was our pick yesterday. Went into extra innings, 3-run walk-off home run for the Brewers to cash all the tickets, the money line, the run line, all of that. Extremely fortunate. That's just the way it's been right now. We are in a groove. We are in a zone. We're absolutely going to keep that going. I hope a lot of you tailed that and cashed that ticket for a nice July 4th. Now, if you want more things, you want more money, because that's what we're after here with sports betting. We're trying to grind out a profit. Let's take the easy ones. And the easiest way to do that is at BetMGM. If you're a new user, you're hopping in for the first time, checking out this channel, you don't know what I'm talking about, link in the description of this video or the promo code BENSBET. All you have to do is this. You go to BetMGM using that link. You sign up, you get a deposit $10 or more. It can be simply $10. Take that money and bet it on a baseball game. Either team, either side, it doesn't matter. Win or lose, boom, they give you $200 to that bankroll. It is a quick and easy addition, and you can take that money and do a lot with it. If you run it up, that could be a season saver. If you take a couple shots and miss, you've lost nothing. You're out $10. So that is an opportunity I would really recommend people doing. A lot of people have done it, and I'm really happy to say that they've been pleased that they did. Now, again, if you're hopping in for the first time, show the support, hit that like button, and subscribe to the channel. We have so much going on. But let's get into where we're going today. Back to baseball, of course, but kind of in the depths, the Guardians and the Tigers, and I took it even more extreme, going over 4.5 runs in the first 5. I have over 9 there as well. That's something that I'll talk about a little bit, but I really like this over 4.5. As you can see with the little indicator there, the line is moving as I film this video. This was at 115 about 2 seconds ago, and now it's up to minus 125. I still like it there. It moved right before I pressed record. So let's dive into it. We get the Guardians 40-38 versus the 32-47 Detroit Tigers. Both teams are about average. You know, the Guardians 20-21 on the road. Tigers 21-24 at home. Cleveland is the favorite. They're sitting about minus 150 across the books here. I didn't really like a side in this game. I guess I would lean Cleveland, but not something that I'm going to bet. Why do I like this? Well, of course, it's something with the pitch.
Serious business, Jordan. Looks like J-Dog. Sun's out, guns out, though, in the Jordan Klein, just sexy AF. What is
Eric's
going
wearing
on? You had to do something. Welcome, everybody, to the MLB Live Before Lock show presented by Odd Chopper. I'm Eric Lindquist. Yes, Greg Ehrenberg just throwing stuff out there. It's blasphemous. It's blasphemous is what I say. But we got Jordan Klein behind the virtual glass. Phenomenal job by the guys before me. There's really no shit talking I can do to Josh Engleman. He got lots of likes, but here's the thing. Greg and I will never have to do Live Before Lock again if we don't get these likes up. So whatever you want to do what you want to do. But I prefer you hit the like button because then we get to hang out with you more. Greg Ehrenberg at Ehrenberg DFS. How you doing, my dude?
I don't get why you don't want the people to know you're wearing makeup.
I mean, kind of a weird thing to just throw out there.
But it's true. You want to become presentable on shows. You're trying to get into acting, modeling, and all of your other, situations you're going on. So you wear makeup on shows now. It's no big deal.
You just couldn't keep it to yourself. Like 2 seconds in, you couldn't fucking wait, could you?
I don't think
you just had to.
I don't think 2 seconds elapsed, in fairness.
All right. Well, there's a story coming up later, but if you want that story, you have to hit the like button. You have to listen to what I say. That's just how it works. Yes, there's an absolute story. Oh my Lord. Hair and makeup, Live Before Lock. You guys are just terrible people. It's all right. I didn't chase the overlay. I didn't do it on Saturday. Greg, are you proud of me?
I think you did, and you're trying to mask your appearance now by wearing makeup.
Terrible. I mean, this is just not the start to the show as I was anticipating, but
all right, being honest, true or false,
okay.
You're wearing makeup right now.
I'm wearing makeup, yes.
All right, there we go. There's a good reason why, though. I'll tell you later. But you guys
yesterday, nobody noticed. Nobody noticed yesterday. I didn't have one person say a thing in the entire YouTube chat. Now there's over 830 people who currently understand that, yes, I'm indeed wearing makeup. We'll see if you guys can tell what's going on, but it's fine.
It's the Brooks Koepka line.
I don't know. I'm starting to understand the Will Smith slap a little bit more now. I'm starting to understand.
I've understood it the whole time.
Just saying, defending my own honor in this situation.
How many likes do we have to get for you to tell the people why you're wearing makeup?
Over 550. If we get over 550, we doubled up the last show. So I want over 550, and I will tell the story of why I'm wearing makeup.
Okay.
That seems fair. I feel like that's not asking a whole lot. Clowns wear makeup. Yes, they absolutely do. You know what else? Normal people every single day wear makeup. I'm not generally one of them. I am today. But we continue on because we're here to talk baseball, Greg. Baseball for the next 55 minutes. Let's do it. Anything that stands out to you on this slate before we dive into this 12-gamer before us?
A-Rod wears makeup also.
Focus, okay? Get back to me. Get back to me. Tip to tip, tip to tip. Let's go.
That's how we focus. We focus by going tip to tip.
Absolutely, we do. You can't. You have no time to let the sorrows of the world leak into your life when you're tip to tip.
So I think we should just do an overview of the weather situation, because that was something that was a pretty big talking point this morning when I was on the strategy show with Adam. In terms of, there's a lot of games with potential weather issues. There's none that I'm taking out of my player pool right now because of the weather. But I do think it's worth keeping an eye on certain games like Minnesota, Chicago. That's a game that's certainly a little bit risky. And then there's other games also where we just have to be aware that, Yankees, Pittsburgh, Washington, Philly, Texas, Baltimore. These are all games with rain potentially in the forecast. So we're going to have to just keep on alert for that for the next hour or so until we get up to lock, just to see if anything changes with those situations.
No, Chad Freeland. No, bad Chad Freeland. I knew you were going to open this Pandora's box of like, Eric has an STD. Eric did this. Eric did that. That is not what is the... I'm just upset. It's fine. It's fine.
Yeah. If we're going to be honest, and I'm just going to guess here, right? I don't know this story. So I'm just going to guess. I think, just pulling some stuff in from the audience altogether, I think Eric got herpes from the porn bot while playing overseas in his first live golf tournament.
The fable just keeps extending to places I never thought it could go. Let's talk pitching, shall we? There's this guy, Luis Garcia, that's available on the DraftKings and the FanDuel slates. He's 10K over on FanDuel. You can play as much of him as you want, under a quarter of the field owned. It makes all the sense in the world against Kansas City to get there. But for DraftKings purposes, it's weird to say that like Luis Garcia on any slate is going to be 40+% owned, let alone a 12-gamer, but pitching is so thin especially at the top end, compared to what it normally would be. There's no security, I don't think, anywhere on the board. Jeffrey Springs would feel like it, but considering he's coming back after a 10-day, 11-day absence for a family emergency, I don't know what to make of him. What do you make of Luis Garcia as the most popular pitcher on the board, Greg?
So it's not just Luis Garcia being the most popular, but here's how bad the pitching is today. The second most popular pitcher on the slate is Yusei Kikuchi. The last time Kikuchi pitched, the opposing offense was the chalkiest offense on the slate. So I don't know that we've ever had a turn like that where Kikuchi, and he pitched really well his last time out, but it's been the same story for him all year. He's sucked, except when he doesn't suck, he generates a lot of strikeouts. So the starts where he doesn't totally get his ass kicked, he ends up putting up fantasy points. But the reason this is relevant to your question about Luis Garcia is I really find him to be unavoidable. I thought when I was making lineups earlier in the day, I was like, surely I'll find other guys that I like more than Luis Garcia when he's going to be 50% owned, but I'm just going to play him. I'm differentiating at offense, which it's not uncommon for me playing some of the chalk pitchers, differentiating at offense. There's a lot of contrarian offenses to like today that makes me feel a little bit better about Luis Garcia. And I just don't really know where to go and feel good about my pitching today. So Luis Garcia is chalk, but I feel kind of forced to play him.
Above the field?
I think right around the field.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm getting at, is that like, I still in tournaments, 150, 20 max stuff, like I still want to find paths to get away from like having 65, 75% of this guy, just because it is going to be so volatile. My last run, I had 60%. I'm trimming it down here as we speak because it feels like a guy that, I mean, has he been good? Is he somebody that I absolutely love to watch pitch? Absolutely. Is this a phenomenal spot against Kansas City with, a Vinny Pasquantino batting cleanup? Yeah, it's an absolutely great spot. When you have somebody like that that's emerging, and that's a bat you're actually worried about compared to the rest of the folks in that lineup. But it's not like he's got a 35% K percentage like we would have on a McClanahan or a Woodruff type slate. Like he's 25.7% in terms of K percentage. That's not even the highest on the slate. Kikuchi on the other side has a higher K rate. He's going into a better ballpark. He's getting a better matchup even. Then you're getting there a huge park upgrade being able to pitch in Oakland. So like for me, I just kind of want to be around the field on Luis Garcia. I kind of want to be lingering around the field. And then I'm going to take stabs on some other guys that I really have interest in. We'll get there. But I totally hear what you're saying about Luis Garcia. Anybody else at the top end you find yourself rostering? Is there any interest you're getting in Pivetta, Tyon, the two other 10K pitchers that you've got for DraftKings purposes today? Pepio, who's now in the mix, Jeffrey Springs, even anybody 90 above Luis Garcia there, above 9,500 that you find yourself rostering quite a bit of?
So I think Springs makes sense. I have a little bit of a conspiracy theory here. So I don't know if Adam talked about this on the last show, and maybe Jordan could back me up if he did or not. Jordan, do you remember, and he probably wasn't paying attention, but Jordan, if you happen to be paying attention during the last show,
give a shit.
Did Adam talk about Jeffrey Springs and why he missed his last game at all? Okay. So Adam messaged me this earlier, and I think it's a good thought. So Jeffrey Springs misses one game. We don't really have much information. It's just that they have a family issue. He was with the Rays right before they went on their road trip to Toronto. He rejoined the team as soon as they returned. Is he just unvaccinated, and this is how they presented it to the public? Because that kind of seems to me to be the most likely scenario.
Look at that. Internet sleuths. Do we need to go in Reddit? Do we need to start digging into the dark intro webs, Josh Engleman style, in order to figure that out?
I don't know if the information would be on Reddit, but I mean, even if he did miss time due to personal issues, it's not like he was dealing with an injury where I think he'd have to be severely limited at all. The Rays also pitched a bullpen game yesterday. It seems unlikely to me they'd want to do back-to-back bullpen games. So I don't really think Springs is going to be limited in any kind of way. Obviously, if we're on the high end, Luis Garcia is the much better play and the guy who should be projected for more fantasy points, more likely to land in an optimal lineup. But just because you asked me which are the contrarian guys I like to get to in this 9K plus range, he's the one that makes the most sense to me. And I'm not really that concerned about him missing one start.
Neither am I. He's an absolute stud. This guy's a stud. And I will say, looking at the weather in Boston today, too, it's sub 70 degrees. This is not your typical Sunday afternoon 100-degree scorch fest in Boston that you might have on July 5th. It is a night game with wind blowing in and it is under 70 degrees. He is my favorite pitcher to be overweight to on today's slate. The guy's just an absolute stud. And I never understood. I just started my new betting video that I'm going to be doing every single day, covering money line, spread bets, everything you could possibly want for every single game. And I just basically talked through Jeffrey Springs, where it's like, if the guy, maybe he's rusty. I don't really know how to go about projecting something like that. But what we do have is a guy who's got a 28% K percentage, doesn't walk anybody, and a 299 xWOBA going up against Nick Pivetta, who gives up hard contact in a lineup in Tampa Bay that isn't great by any means. The back half of that thing looks like trash, but there's definitely some opportunity here for them to get after Boston. I like the under of the, 9.5 run total we had earlier. Jeffrey Springs is just an absolute stud. So I'm going to be riding that side of it with you. I like that shout out for sure. But as we start moving down the board, it does get fascinating in the same way that people in chat trying to be fascinating, coming up with new and unique ways that I am wearing makeup. Haven't hit it yet. Haven't figured it out, fans. But anybody else underneath Luis Garcia, this Alex Wood, Michael Kopech, both of them garnering quite a bit of attention. I have a lot more interest in one than the other. I'll let you guess which. Oh, you took a drink of water. I'm the worst.
No, I'm guessing.
Mind.
I'm guessing.
Okay.
So just between Wood and Kopech?
Yes.
I'm going to guess you prefer Michael Kopech.
I don't. Alex Wood, I'm just taking the chalk.
All right. I had a 50-50 shot. So with Alex Wood, his underlying numbers are much better than his actual ERA this year. But I'm kind of going both ways on this. And ultimately, I think it just kind of makes sense to be around even with the field on Alex Wood. By the way, Anthony Rizzo scratched from the Yankees lineup today with a back injury. But Alex Wood, so he has a 5.03 ERA, but a 3.93 expected ERA, 3.58 FIP. So a lot of unluckiness this year. He's a 340 BABIP. He's a 66.8% left on base rate. If both those things were to normalize to his career averages, you've got a guy with an ERA in the high threes or so. But his velocity has dipped in recent starts, and this is not uncommon for Alex Wood. It's been a trend throughout his career. He is not durable enough to pitch over the length of an entire season. So we see this all the time where he's really good generally in the first half of the season, and then he's much worse in the second half of the season. His fastball velocity is usually down a pretty considerable amount once we get into the second half of the year. So on one hand, he's clearly been unlucky this year. On the other hand, his velocity is starting to dip, and we're kind of starting to get into the part of the season where Alex Wood becomes less effective. So I don't really know what to make of all this information. So I tend to just think like, hey, he's going to be around 20% on. That seems about reasonable to me.
Yep, I'm with you. I just want to have zero Michael Kopech is kind of what I'm getting at. There's a lot of weather concerns. There's a batch of storms looking like it could be showing up after. We'll have to see what happens with this game leading up to it, because I would have a lot of Twins exposure, a lot of White Sox exposure, even on the other side of this one against Josh Winder. If there is going to be an opportunity to play this game, if it's going to be having a window to be able to play it. But yeah, it's going to be risky, and I understand that. We have more information that'll be coming out. And that is why you want to be a part of Stokastic, so you guys can be in that premium Discord day in, day out, checking out what the news gods got. I know Terry's been hanging out there. Josh has been hanging out there, giving you guys the goods leading into these slates, as well as weather information. We're all in this together. We're trying to do the best we can to be able to analyze some of that stuff. So be on the lookout. But Michael Kopech, not really a guy I want to be getting to. With the amount of power there, you need a lot of things to kind of go right for Michael Kopech. And I'm looking at shorting his 28.5 fantasy score on Prize Picks as a result. We'll get there later. But let's move down the board, my friend, because Yusei Kikuchi is very popular in the mid-7s, 7,800 there specifically. I totally get it. I absolutely get it against the A's. As you said, he looked great last time out. One start does not a pitcher make, and I've never been a Kikuchi guy, but it's hard not to have interest against the A's in Oakland, everything panning out for him there. How do you feel about Kikuchi on today's slate?
It's been really bad this year, astoundingly terrible. He's a 4.74 ERA, but a 6.32 expected ERA, a 5.57 FIP. Just straight. I think he's one of the worst pitchers on the slate today. For fantasy purposes, there's clearly upside because he strikes out a bunch of guys. He has a 26.3% K rate. That's a career best mark. His velocity is down quite a bit from last year. That's a little bit concerning. He sucks, but he has fantasy upside. So I don't want to be near where the field is at on him. I think there's a lot of good pivots to be made at cheaper price points. But at the same time as well, for cash games, I guess you just kind of roll with Luis Garcia and Yusei Kikuchi on DraftKings, because He has strikeout upside. If he's going to be like 60 to 70% owned in cash games, you might as well play him. For tournaments, I understand there's upside. The A's offense sucks. I don't know the A's offense is worse than Kikuchi is as a pitcher, though. So I tend to want to be underweight to the field on his ownership. Like if you stacked against Kikuchi really heavily in your in his last start, I think it would be silly for him to pitch one good outing and then for you to be like, okay, now I'm just all in on Kikuchi this start. So it's too much ownership for me. I'd prefer to look elsewhere for value in tournaments.
I get that. I'm going to be just short of the field. I said for him and for Garcia, it's just a very volatile pitching slate. But what's up? Uh-oh. It's not your connection, bro. Dude, bro, chill life. We'll see. See what's going on.
By the way, Jordan, I could see, because I could see your internet connection on my screen. Your internet's low.
Yep.
I only know what Zoom is telling me.
Oh, man.
Let's see.
Interweb.
So if I bring up Eric, so Eric looks good. Jordan.
AT&T got me covered now, baby.
Yeah, so Jordan's going yellow and like no bars. I don't know. Maybe it's okay now.
We're on now. Eric did it to fix his makeup. Yeah, no, I had a quick. A man has no face. A man has no face.
All right. Jordan says to refresh and everything should be good now.
Refresh. Don't do it. Want to get to it.
So we'll see.
Refresh.
I mean, we'll just keep talking it through. We'll see what happens. Cool. But I think it seems like we should be good now.
Hit refresh.
Yeah, Jordan's
Dude, bro, chill life.
Jordan's internet connection is back to being good in Zoom, by the way.
Absolute trash. And yes, a makeup break. We're back now. Hello, friends. Let's continue along with the pitching slate. And I'm going to open it up to you here before we talk about my guy at the very bottom end. It's not going to be pretty, but is there anybody sub Kikuchi 7,800 that you find yourself rostering lots of?
Well, lots, I don't know is the right way to describe it, but Spencer Howard, Adam talked me into him a little bit earlier in the day, and I also have a prop bet on Spencer Howard. The over-under for strikeouts on Howard was 2.5 this morning. I don't know if that's moved at all, but that's a really low number for a guy who I think is really similar to Kikuchi. Like the numbers are terrible, but he generates strikeouts. So it's hard to read too much into what we've seen from Spencer Howard this year at the big league level because he's only pitched 6 innings. In the minor leagues, though, he's delivered okay results, 3.69 ERA, 3.65 FIP, but he has a 30.8% K rate. And, you know, over the course of his big league career, we have seen him, as much as he's struggling and gotten hit hard, he does strike guys out. So I think he's really similar to Kikuchi, just he's cheaper and isn't picking up near the ownership. So Spencer Howard is somebody who I think makes for a good pivot off of Kikuchi that we also save money with. Like, I don't think the outlook should be that much different between these two guys.
My 3 highest owned pitchers, Luis Garcia, Spencer Howard, and Jeffrey Springs, in that order. I really don't understand. And this is one of the things I covered last night. This was really what was fun about doing the betting video last night, was it kind of helped me jumpstart my process. And you look at a game like this, and I just kind of expected, based on what you saw at the big league level, oh, I'm going to just stack against Spencer Howard. It's going to be awful. What's up?
Okay. The thing that's weird is, so sometimes I assume that people could still hear us. So sometimes we're doing shows, it does cut out, but we're aware of it when we're talking, right? Like I'll see Eric will get fuzzy and he'll kind of drop, or my screen will freeze. Like I don't see any issues when we're just talking to each other.
Interesting. Looks good now. Looks good to me. I think it's good. Are we not here?
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay. Well, we continue on with our lives. I don't know what else to do other than to rock. What? Okay. Spencer Howard, I like him a lot. And it just comes down to looking at some of his AAA numbers. You brought it up where, yeah, he can generate strikeouts at that level. Can he transfer it against big league hitters? We shall see. But why wouldn't you find out on a slate like this, as opposed to a slate where there's more secure pitching at the top? That's just kind of the slate that it is to me. If there's going to be a bottom tier guy available to us, this is just the slate to be firing it up at 30.8% K percentage at AAA in a pretty large sample size. And what's really nice is that home run rate is way down, 0.58 home runs per nine at that level, with a 225 batting average, of 1.25 whip. I mean, these are just markedly better than what we saw when he was with the Philadelphia. Well, I mean, when he was with the Philadelphia AAA organization, he was just an absolute prize gem. Spencer Howard was. So I'm looking at him as a guy. He's the number one graded prospect for the Texas Rangers. I'm just trusting what I'm seeing from FanGraphs there too. So he's just going to be somebody I take a massively overweight stance to. Anybody else in pitcher that you're getting to some kind of a nominal amount of?
So in terms of, or just talking about short guys, cheap guys now.
Short guys, cheap guys.
Yeah, I mean, no. Are we only looking at the cheap price range?
Yeah, cheap. I'm talking cheapies. I'm talking anything you want where you're overweight, because I think at this point it's like, well, Ian Anderson's getting 10%. I'm not really getting there. We've got other pitchers that are garnering some attention, like Kopech, who I already said I'm not going to be involved in any of that. Pivetta is such a boom bust, but I get it because of the K percentage. I'm just curious if there's anybody else that you find yourself getting overweight to, the way I am with like Spencer Howard.
Yeah, so like I said, I like Spencer Howard as well. Another one, just to jump back up to the price range, somebody we haven't talked about. I think there's a lot of safety with Jameson Taillon, which on a slate like this, I think could pay better dividends than we would typically see, because the pitching sucks today. There could be a lot of guys that go negative. Is Taillon worth a 10K price tag on DraftKings? Most likely not on most slates. Is he worth 9,400 on FanDuel? Also, most likely not on both slates, but I do think he's safe to put up at least 15 or so fantasy points on DK. There's a pretty good chance on FanDuel he gets the win bonus and the quality start bonus. So I do like the security that we're getting with Taillon, and I think that makes him worth being in the player pool. The price tag is a little bit steep for a guy who's a sub 20% K rate, but this is a Pirates offense that's just not particularly good. Even with all the young guys they've called up, a lot of them have been inconsistent. Like O'Neal Cruz. I love O'Neal Cruz. You love O'Neal Cruz. We played him a bunch when he got called up, but the reality is that he hasn't been great at the big league level to this point. So Taillon has a really easy matchup. It's in a pitcher's park. He's only projected for 6% ownership over on DK. I think that's a number to get over the top of. Over on FanDuel, he's projected for 2% ownership. I just think he's an easy pitcher to be overweight to the field on when he brings a really high floor to the table.
Don't mind that at all. Anything else from pitching that you want to be getting to on this slate? Because I feel like we should just be getting ourselves to stacks, because there's a lot to talk about there.
One thing to bring up, I'm confused by why people are getting into Nick Pivetta so much. He is 10,300 over on DraftKings, 10,100 over on FanDuel, project for 11% ownership on FanDuel, 15% on DK. And just compare him to some of the other guys we've talked about that are kind of contrarian options. So Jeffrey Springs, Pivetta is double the ownership of Springs compared to Jameson Taillon. He's got about 3x the ownership. So I don't understand what makes people gravitate to Pivetta so much more than those other guys, especially when, he's a pretty tough matchup against the Tampa Bay Rays. Somebody like Taillon's pitching against the Pirates, which is a much easier matchup. So I don't know why people are getting to Pivetta at this kind of extent. If he was to be, 3, 4, 5%, I'd be like, okay, that's reasonable to me. I don't know how he ends up being this popular. So what are you doing with Pivetta?
Yeah, I'm shorting it. I'm shorting a lot of other pitchers on this slate. Obviously, I'm taking the massive approach to Jeffrey Springs, to Spencer Howard, and then, battle at the field on Luis Garcia. I'm still getting over 50% of him. I can't trim Luis Garcia. I'm trying to without capping, and it's just going to be a problem, I think, where I just get to more than I thought I would of him. But yeah, I don't understand it either. Maybe it's one of those things where he's the most expensive pitcher. So some people are just stepping in and saying, hey, he must be the best pitcher on the slate or something. But I can't imagine that in the year of our Lord 2022, that somebody would be that ridiculous that they wouldn't have a projection site or wouldn't have the wherewithal to know that Nick Pivetta ain't that guy. You're not that guy, pal. You're not that guy.
No, and once again, I don't think there's that much that separates him from Jeffrey Springs, from Taillon. So I would just rather play the other guys for lower ownership.
I'm with you. All right. Well, we've covered pitchers pretty in depth. Hit that like button. My God, we're only at 340. I don't think this story is going to get told today. I just don't think it's going to happen. Jordan Klein shaking his head. He doesn't believe it either. Just ain't going to happen. He wasn't doing anything. I was making that up. But hit the like button so that I don't have to make up a story. I can tell you exactly what happened to my face, the many-faced God.
You guys want to know why Eric's wearing makeup today? Hit that like button.
It's a pretty important story. You know what's also pretty important? You guys signing up over at BetMGM, if you guys are in a legal state, there's nothing I can say or do that is better than just instantly putting $200 in your pocket. And here's how you do it. We have in the description of this video below on YouTube, conveniently right there, and I'm sure Jordan Klein, producer behind the virtual glass, will be able to fire that into chat here as well. But this BetMGM promo, I don't know how long these things are going to last for, but I can guarantee you need to take advantage of it now. So go to BetMGM this second, sign up. You play any MLB money line tonight, and you get $200 free. That's it. $200 free just by playing $10 over at BetMGM. It does not get any easier than that. So check out that. And I'm going to throw this in too, because this is very, very important to me as well. I know Josh brought it up on the previous show, but it needs to be reiterated. Stokastic Tools Plus and Stokastic Plus. We're looking at getting you guys all the tools and content we're referring to throughout this show. And I think this deal could be leaving very, very shortly, because that's the word on the street in my work Slack. So I'm telling you, it could happen. You need to sign up using MLB Live right now. Promo code MLB Live gets you 50% off all of the top pitchers tool, top stacks tool, top batters tool, which is fantastic for MLB purposes, developed by Sean Zahn. Phenomenal stuff for you guys to take advantage of, as well as every other sport. We've got the Scottish Open. Looking forward to that one this week. Did the strategy show with Ben Raza. You'll have Jason Roslin tomorrow night with Ben on the Live Before Lock. But the top golfers tool, the opportunity to check out the top drivers tool. There's been overlay at F1 pretty much every Sunday for the last, I don't know how long, but you have an opportunity to instantly play projections if you're signed up for Stokastic Plus. So do that using promo code MLB Live. That is all caps, one word, MLB Live. I promise you, nothing is better that I could possibly say than using our tools and content. So if you're watching this now and you want to make yourself profitable, this is the best way to do it, bar none. Stop guessing star winning. Join us at Stokastic Plus today. All right, dude, let's do it. It is stack season, and you could basically make a case for almost every single team on the board today, which that just like legitimately never happens. But when you don't have elite pitching, there is viability to just about everybody. Now, I'm not going to play a lot of Oakland. I have like Bethancourt shares. I have, a few shares of guys here and there that could maybe get to Kikuchi, but no full stacks there, no full stacks of Kansas City, but pretty much every other team I find to be viable. So I bring it up every single time on our shows together. Who is your favorite for your single entry team today?
Wonder how many guesses it would take you to get it.
Okay. Let's play this game.
I also said it this morning. I don't presume.
I didn't watch this morning. I swear on a Bible, I did not see it this morning.
All right. Because it hasn't changed.
Well, it's not going to be Philly, Cleveland, or the Dodgers. So that's cool. Let's go with Houston.
Oh my God. You got it right away. It is the Houston Astros. So I'm
dead serious. I didn't see it.
Yeah, no, I think we're a little short on projecting the top stack odds for the Astros. Greinke's been miserable this year, and he doesn't generate swing and misses. That is certainly problematic when you're going up against the Houston Astros. There's a lot of left-handed power in the Houston lineup. Something I bet this morning, Kyle Tucker plus 430 to homer. Yordan Alvarez is also somebody who has a pretty profitable bet over at OddsShopper. Use the projections there, plus 310. That looks like a positive ROI number. So I think that this is a spot for Greinke that's just getting slept on by the field. And I know there's a number of really shitty pitchers today, and there's a bunch of them that we could pick on, but 3% ownership for the Astros at home against Greinke, who has a sub 10% K rate against left-handed pitching. His velocity is down this year. He's old. He just looks washed. And his ERA, I think, is maybe a little bit better than what it should be. So maybe that is something that's influencing people a little bit, because he's a 4.38 ERA, but he's a 5.32 expected ERA. I think this is a very washed pitcher who's just replacement level at this point in his career, and the Astros should tee off on him.
I think they should too. It's one of my favorites last night on my betting video, which again, if you guys haven't checked out the OddsShopper channel yet, and you haven't signed up over there, sign in with your email address. You can get all the projections that Greg's referring to for Kyle Tucker, for everything else over there free. But you also, at the OddsShopper YouTube channel, have free betting videos every single day from Greg, from myself, from Ben Raza, from so many amazing analysts here at Stokastic. Check them out every single day. But my new betting video is called Lindy's Leans, Likes, and Locks, baby. So I'm talking my teams that I'm kind of leaning towards betting, teams that I like to bet, that I think get the verified stamp of approval. But there were two locks. This is one of them. -1.5 Houston Astros. Luis Garcia on the mound. That's decent enough. Obviously, everybody's playing him. But why are people not playing the Houston Astros bats? I don't understand. I think they absolutely tee off on one Zach Greinke today as well. So I'm completely on board with that take. Kyle Tucker and Yordan Alvarez, I always play them in two-mans, especially when they're low-owned. They are two of my favorite one-offs to be getting to, or two-mans 5-2-1 stacks for DraftKings purposes today. So I will be firing that up with you. But I will say that they're probably my second favorite stack to be getting to on today's slate. I slightly prefer still getting to shares of the Minnesota Twins, just because I think you could get almost no ownership depending on what this weather looks like. I don't know. I understand Michael Kopech has been a very good pitcher when he's been healthy, which has, been the last 2 years, thank God, because he's a really good pitcher. And even though he's in the division of the team that I cheer for, the Minnesota Twins, he's their major opponent. He's still giving up some hard contact, nearly 40%. There are just so many bats in this Twins lineup that, they hit for average with guys like Araz. They've got guys, at the top end as well. Carlos Correa hitting pretty well for expected batting average 296. And then you've got this expected slugging of Buxton, Correa, Sanchez, Polanco, Kepler, all of them 500 or greater. That is ridiculous amount of power going up against Kopech in a decent enough ballpark for power. I feel pretty confident that they'll be my highest owned stack if that game is a go. How do you feel about them?
Yeah, so they're very different looking on FanDuel and DraftKings, I should bring up, because they are kind of popular on FanDuel, projected for relative to the size of the slate. They're projected for 5% ownership. So a lot of people wouldn't think this is a big difference, but it kind of is. On FanDuel, they're projected for 5% ownership. DK only 2.4% ownership. At 2.4%, that is a much more acceptable number to me in the 5%. If they were up at 5, which is twice as much, like over on FanDuel, it's hard for me to have interest there. But yeah, for DK purposes, Kopech has had some issues with hard contact as of late. And I thought he was going to strike out a ton of guys this year. It just hasn't really been the case for whatever reason. The stuff still looks really good. He's throwing really hard, but it's not generating as many swing and misses as it has at points in the past. So I don't have an issue with it. And I know a lot of the other times that you've rostered the Twins, there's been times where they've been popular. This isn't one of those slates. And by the way, I know you don't have a Twins bias per se when you build your lineups. It does seem to get you the Twins a lot, though.
I'm just saying. Well, here's the thing. There's a lot of opportunities to roster back end of the lineup. Guys like Gio Urshela still packs a little bit of punch. You get Jose Miranda, a really good hitting prospect. You get Alex Kirilloff, who I believe in. And these guys are always completely unowned. So it just makes it so much easier to be able to land on shares of the Minnesota Twins. Because Buxton and Correa and Sanchez, when he's catching, obviously, or DHing, those guys are always garnering attention. And so it's always going to look worse than it actually is when you start sprinkling in some of those back lineup guys. Now, if you just go 1 through 5, you're going to be running into some ownership almost every single slate, but it's so easy for me to add like a Nick Gordon when he's in the lineup, a Jose Miranda, never Celestino, but pretty much everybody else who comes in who's like had a stint there, whether it's Larnach, whether it's Garlick, they all have power. So it makes it so easy to trim some of the ownership of lineups. And that isn't really present on every single team in baseball.
Sorry, some news that just came across. I heard everything you
Josh
said.
Naylor
got to
scratched.
respond to it.
Yeah.
And then we just got Josh Naylor being scratched, which is going to be important to, I assume, a lot of people's lineups, because Cleveland is currently projected to be the most popular team on the slate on both DraftKings and FanDuel. So Josh Naylor homered yesterday, but had to leave the game because of an injury. He will not be in the lineup today.
Good stuff. Yes, no Josh Naylor. Don't put your hands in the Naylor.
Well, what was Jordan? Did you understand what he was trying to do there?
Oh, hot damn! This is my jam.
Okay, now I got it.
Into the AM. Hit the like button, dear God. Nobody cares about me and wants to hear my story. I think it's pretty. It's not that interesting, but it's interesting.
Weekend Blue Jays lineup. So we just got the Blue Jays lineup that came out. I saw Terry post about it in chat. Who's in this lineup for the Blue Jays? Ooh, no Vlad today. So Jesus Christ.
I had so many Toronto Blue Jays. I was like around 12%, 10% on most of these guys. That's going to be a huge pain in the ass. This is a pain in the ass, Greg.
It's very rare that we do baseball shows and actually get any kind of news that's substantial, but this clearly is. So just before Josh Naylor scratched, and right after that, we get the Blue Jays lineup, and it's Springer, Bichette, Kirk, Hernandez, Biggio batting 5th. That's weird. Chapman, Tapia, Espinal, and Moreno. So Yeah, no Vlad in the lineup today. That's the big one.
Any Adrian Martinez interest for you, Greg?
No. So,
okay.
I
just had to do it because it was funny.
Yeah, I know that we've got no Vlad in the lineup, but I still think the Blue Jays are a fine team to get overweight to the field to. So over on DK, we only have them projected for 2% ownership. Over on FanDuel, we have the Blue Jays projected for 0.8% ownership. They're the most positively leveraged team on both sites. And while obviously Vlad being out is a negative for them, and Oakland is a pitcher-friendly park, they're also cheaper now, and I think there's a good chance that Adrian Martinez isn't good. It's hard to know because he pitches in the PCL, so his minor league numbers are terrible. But is it because he sucks, or is it because of the pitcher parks? It's such a bad league for evaluating pitcher talent. So, all right, he had a 5.63 ERA and a 5.64 FIP in the minor leagues. Obviously, that's terrible, but it's hard to know what that translates to. And so far in the big leagues, we've only seen him pitch 10 innings. He has decent zips and steamer projections, but I think there's a chance he's just not good. And we're getting the Blue Jays at no ownership, very, very low owned on DraftKings and FanDuel. So it's a team to be overweight to.
With you. I'm going to still get to some Blue Jays. I think just kind of piecing together this lineup as we're going along. It is just gross though to look at. Like you look at it and it's not palatable.
It's not great, but it's weird that Biggio's batting fifth.
Yeah, why?
Right, but if you're playing the top, actually, so if I
Daddy, I want to bat fifth in the major league level, Daddy. Sorry, that was a Craig Biggio joke.
Is this? I feel like this is somehow tied into why you're wearing makeup, also.
No, it's probably not because I'm calling somebody Daddy.
Yep.
Is that what you're saying?
Yep.
I don't think that's the case. I would
You weren't
know.
in any kind of film before this show?
All right, we continue on.
So
other stats.
Blue Jays point. Anyway, I was
Yes.
going to say that because I really like Gabriel Moreno as a prospect. He's one of the top catching prospects in all of baseball, and he remains cheap. So if you're making a 5-man stack on DK, obviously for FanDuel, you just play 4 of them. But I mean, it's easy enough to just go 9, 1, 2, 3, 4, or for FanDuel, play 1, 2, 3, 4. You don't have to be that concerned about ownership because they're sub 1% as a team.
I was so proud of myself because I turned Torkelson into Julio Rodriguez before the season started. Do you know what else I did? I went out and got Gabriel Moreno for a player I don't even want to say the name of because I just needed catcher help, and then life fell and everything's awful. All right, cool. Well,
who'd you trade for Gabriel Moreno?
Gary Sanchez.
Oh, that's not that ridiculous.
It's pretty bad.
No. What is
Gabriel Moreno has not been good. At least I could get some home runs from Gary Sanchez at this point. I mean, I didn't know how much utility he had. Again, this is just, thinking about it defensively. I thought that we would, this is also a while back where I thought we would have a number of other options. Ryan Jeffers has now been dinged up in some spots. He had to sit out the last couple of days here too, but Gary Sanchez, 9 homers, 218 average, looking up against Gabriel Moreno. Again, on base percentage is part of it. You're playing with these roto leagues, and that's kind of what you're mainly concerned of, somebody who can help you in all categories. And let me just tell you, Gabriel Moreno is helping me in 0 categories. He hasn't even been in a lineup for me since God knows when. No homers. He's hitting 298, but I just needed homers out of this dude.
I mean, Sanchez is on pace for less than 20 homers. Being honest, if you ask me which side of the trade I'd rather have is this a 1-year league? Dynasty,
but you can only keep 5 players at year end.
All right. So you're probably not keeping
Buxton is going to be on my team for the next 10 years. So that's one spot.
Yeah, so I mean, in that sense, yeah, you're probably not keeping Moreno this year. So then
I'm not. And that was kind of what I was hoping, is that I was going to be able to keep him long term. But what I've seen so far is not that enthralling. And yeah, it's a 2-catcher league too.
That's weird.
Changes your opinion. You've never seen these 2-catcher leagues? They're the best.
I've seen them. I don't like them.
Oh, okay. I enjoy them very much, but we continue on. We can have differences of opinion about that. I think it adds another element to, the valuation of a catcher is just outrageous. I wish I had Rishman, but whatever. Other stacks, because that's what people are here for. Preparation Ace on the face, Botox. God, you guys are just so cold. It's unbelievable. So cold. Not going to be cold tonight, though. Going to the San Francisco Bats. probably the most popular team that still has positive leverage. Tyler Gilbert looked like it was going to be this Moore character who got the call up. Nope, it was Tyler Gilbert here. And I will say, San Francisco is always a dicey situation, especially when you see 0 of these lefties in the starting lineup. And 1 or 2 are going to show up at some point in this game unless it completely shoots out. Do you have any San Francisco interest? Because it's a team I'm getting to a surprising amount of.
Not really. And I've soured on. Have we gotten the Giants lineup?
No.
Okay.
Have we? Yeah. I think we did earlier, didn't we? Yeah, we did. No, we have not. But
Okay,
it's going to be, you're going to get Ruff, you're going to get Slater, you're going to get all those righties more than likely. And then, Jock's going to show up at some point. Yastrzemski's going to show up at some point.
Yeah. So my concern is that, and we don't know if Yerman Mercedes is going to be in the lineup or somebody else, but I mean, my concern is that guys like Austin Slater and Darren Ruff get 2 plate appearances and then get lifted from the game. That's what I think is the most likely scenario here. And then you just get guys like Tommy La Stella, Lamont Wade, Jock Peterson to come off the bench. And it's depending, obviously, what the starting lineup looks like. If they start left-handed bats, those lefties like a Jock Peterson, for instance, would just play. But if they're going to be playing a righty-heavy lineup and it's guys like Ruff and Slater, they're getting pinch hit for as soon as there's a pitching change. So it's really hard for me to want to stack the San Francisco Giants in any kind of significant way because it's really hard to project for. And I've gotten screwed so many times, like, oh, cool, the Giants scored 10 runs out of my stack. Dude, it's like, oh, nice, I rostered Darren Ruff, who went 1 for 2 with a single and got lifted for a pinch hitter. I remember I think of this all the time with Darren Ruff. This was, I don't know, a couple of years ago, where I had a Giant stack that scored a whole bunch of runs. Darren Ruff came up in the second inning with the bases loaded, and there was a pitching change and got pinch hit for in the second inning. And ever since then, I kind of look at the Giants just through the lens of like, all right, there's upside in rostering them on individual slates. Clearly, there's upside against Tyler Gilbert, but I have to dial back my exposure to them relative to our tools and what I would normally do, just because it's so hard to take into account the pinch hit risk, which is so much more substantial with the Giants than any other team in the league.
Yep. I get it. I still just think because they're coming in a little bit underowned as is, and it's such a good spot, I still want to get to some shares. I'm surprised because I generally, I take our projections. We have the best projections in the game, period, at Stokastic, the absolute best. But I always feel like I have to go manually put in some decreases to San Francisco so I don't get them on days like this. Well, I put in some decreases and I'm still getting to them. So I don't really know what that says. I think it speaks to more of the security of guys like Wilmer Flores, Evan Longoria, guys who I think are unaffected by these kind of situations. So I'm getting to lots of those guys. And then as a result, some of the other pieces are coming along for the ride. You really need one swing from them to have it pay off. But yeah, as you said, definitely going to be a risky type play for sure. Let's talk some of the popular teams everybody's getting to, because again, this is kind of the major part of this slate is figuring out which teams to be stacking up. And we've got 3 very, very popular teams in Cleveland, Philadelphia, and the Dodgers. If you were forced to roster one of them, because I know you and I both are kind of the same where we try to get way lower on some of these teams, is there one of those 3 that you're still going to be rostering today?
You said Cleveland, Philly, and the Dodgers, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, I don't like any of them for this slate.
Okay, there you go. That was quick. Good talk.
Yeah, it's so much ownership where we have, and it's relative to the size of the slate, but it's about 40% of the field is stacking one of these 3 teams, where the combined total of their top stack odds is right around 17%. So I just think they're going way over. There's so many offenses I like that are just picking up less ownership that I think make more sense. Like I could get the Yankees for half the ownership of the Guardians or other teams that we've talked about to this point. Like you like the Twins before. I think there's upside there. The Astros, that's my favorite single entry team. Really, the Astros against Zach Greinke are 3% owned when the Guardians against Drew Hutchinson are 16% owned. I get that Hutchinson isn't good, but neither is Greinke. And I don't think there's that much that separates them as pitchers right now. Houston is a better offense than Cleveland. We don't need to pay up for pitching. Like there's no need to get up to a Jacob deGrom or Max Scherzer or anything today because the expensive pitchers on the slate are like Nick Pivetta and Springs and Jameson Taillon. So I'm cool with saving money at pitcher, paying up for offense. Just paying up for offense is different than what the field are paying up for.
Okay, that's fine. If I had to roster one, I'd be looking at Philadelphia between the three. I also think with the Dodgers, yeah, it's just too much ownership going their way. German Marquez, outside of Coors, I'm not saying he's a good pitcher at this stage in his career, but his home road splits are understandably drastic. I don't really want to get to Marquez. There's really no point for me. I know that pitching's thin, but it's not that thin where I feel like I have to get to Marquez. I just think that it's a decent enough spot where he's outside of Coors where he can maybe get by, and then the Dodgers can fail kind of in that regard, more so than I want to get to Marquez for leverage. I think Philadelphia is just like all systems go. And if you want to get to them, I understand it. I'm finding ways to get to it. If you're playing cash, you're playing Kyle Schwarber. There's really no other answer for DraftKings other than Kyle Schwarber. You're prioritizing him, period, end of story. But let's do this now, because we have other teams to still be getting to. If you didn't roster Houston in single entry, and if you didn't get to Toronto in single entry, is there another team that might stand out for you, in like a 3-max situation where you might be able to play a third team?
So let's see. If I had to pick a third favorite, I'm playing a lot of single entry lineups today.
No, I said a 3-max, baby. Your third team.
All right. Well, I can
Who would
convert
your
to
third
Mormon,
team
just marry a bunch of ladies, and then I get 3, and then I get as many single entry lineups as I want, right?
Yeah, well, there's something to it. Whatever works.
One way to get a black eye and have to wear makeup. So if I had to pick a third team, I think it would be the Atlanta Braves going up against Andre Palante. So from what we've seen out of Palante, the numbers are not all that impressive. And the Braves offense, the Braves haven't gone on there was a couple slates where they were popular last week, but I think this is the team I've rostered the most in single entry over the last 2-3 weeks. There's been so many days where you have them projected for, 2-3% ownership, 8-9% top stack odds. And Palante does have a low ERA, but the underlying numbers, he's a 4.1 FIP, 3.64 expected ERA, which are not terrible, but it's not anywhere near the 2.1 ERA. And then also you look at his minor league numbers from last year, and those aren't all that great. Last year in Double-A, he had a 3.82 ERA, 4.34 FIP. Neither Zips nor Steamer has a very favorable projection on going forward. He doesn't generate strikeouts, which is always a concern for me. 14.8% strikeout rate in AAA last year, 19.4% in Double-A this year, 14.3% strikeout rate. He does induce a lot of ground balls, but I think there's a chance that this is just not a good pitcher, and the league is really going to pick up on some of his tendencies as they get more data, more video on him. So I like the Braves as that answer for my third one, but I do really strongly prefer the other two that we talked about.
I like the team on the other side of that game. I'm getting to quite a few St. Louis Cardinals. That was going to be my last shout out, going up against Ian Anderson, who is giving up over a 40% hard hit rate, striking out less than 20% of batters here. The dude, 2 years removed from a ridiculous strikeout percentage. Now he's not generating swings and misses, but he's walking guys in an 11% clip. I just think this St. Louis lineup, moving Yepez up to the 2-hole, getting Gorman, getting Carlson, even this Connor Capel individual, flat 2K, went yard the other day for his first homer at the big league level. And here you go. We'll see if he ends up being decent, but has had over a 750 OPS his last 2 seasons in AAA. Could be decent enough. I don't know, but it's a 2K flat dude in stacks with St. Louis. I find myself getting to quite a few of them. I get Atlanta's talent. I do look at Palante's ground ball rate, which is comparable to Framber Valdez. That's kind of a ridiculous fact for him. So not my favorite time to be getting to Atlanta, but I do understand that just from a talent perspective, it's nice to see that they're not like getting completely steamed up to a place where you can't roster them. Whereas like yesterday, I think we both kind of knew it was going to be dire, and we knew Atlanta was going to end up popular. Sure enough, they were popular, even though we didn't have that projected. It's really hard to overlook Atlanta on any slate going forward.
Yeah, and then one other thing to bring up about Palante before we move on. His numbers this year, don't forget he pitched out of the bullpen for a lot of the year.
Right.
And it's going to always be different when somebody becomes a starter versus being a reliever. He has a 12.4% strikeout rate as a starter. And his underlying numbers are also much worse as a starter than he was as a reliever. So that's something else that makes me very skeptical of the numbers we've seen from him overall this year. That and his ground ball rate is way higher in the big leagues than it was at any point in the minor leagues. Just none of that really makes sense to me.
All right. Good shout out there to finish it out. Any other stacks that you want to give a shout out to? We're at 352. I want to talk a little Odd Shopper again. We've talked it throughout this show, talked a little Prize Picks even to give you guys some shout outs there. Use promo code AWESEMO. It's still promo code AWESEMO over there if you're signing up to get that $100 first match deposit bonus. That's where I'm specializing at here in California. That's the real advice I want to get you guys before we get off this show as well. And I'll let Greg do all of the talking about the sports betting that he's been smashing. A lot of these strikeout props you've been getting on early in the morning. If I could have gotten 2.5 on Spencer Howard, my day would be a whole lot better. But stacks, anything else you think we need to be talking about?
I mean, we've hit on the ones that are, I'm just going through my exposures right now to see if there's anything that I've really missed talking about. Let's see. The Nationals. That's one other team that I think really makes sense to be overweight to. So Christopher Sanchez is going to be on the mound today for the Phillies, and the young pitcher we don't really have that much information on. More often than not, when there's a young pitcher that's not a highly rated prospect that there's limited sample size on, these guys end up sucking like 90% of the time. maybe he's good because we don't know anything about him. He's pitched 15 total innings this year, the majority of it out of the bullpen. He was decent in AAA this year, but once again, he made 6 starts and pitched a total of 20 innings. It's a really limited sample size. So we don't know that much about this guy, but he's a non-rated prospect. He's 25 years old. Fangraphs has him ranked as the 28th best prospect in the Phillies organization. This isn't exactly one of the best farm systems in baseball right now. So he was not a known talent coming into the year. He's going up against a Nationals team that also doesn't really have that much offensive talent. So nobody's rostering Sanchez. Nobody's rostering the Nationals offense. And even though the Nationals have a bad offense, it's a major league caliber offense. I don't know that Sanchez is a major league caliber pitcher. So being that the Nats are only 1% owned as a stack, that's something else that I think is a deep GPP stack.
Love it. Let's round it out, my friend, with Odd Shopper here. We'll do our home run picks at the very end. I know Kyle Tucker was a great shout out by you. I think we can talk about that here as well. But in 30 seconds or less, watch this. I go to Odd Shopper. I go to MLB bets, and I'm instantly capable of finding positive EV bets. We can use the projection system here at Stokastic. You can use the Sharp Sportsbook lines, which are fantastic as well. Those have been great in terms of being able to project some home runs going forward here as well. Really enjoyed using that product. Helps me over at Prize Picks too, be able to find some of the highest expected win percentage guys, because that's what we're worried about for Prize Picks purposes, is we are looking to get you across the finish line any way we possibly can. But in terms of betting, nothing is easier than using the projection system we have here at Stokastic and being able to instantly find yourself some winners. A plus 126, going to the under 4.5 strikeouts for Yusei Kikuchi. If you're going to be shorting him, why not double down in that kind of an approach? 56% expected win percentage, more than a 50-50 shot with plus money behind it. That's an expected ROI of 28%. That looks really, really nice. Cal Quantrill, another pitcher I just don't believe in. The under 4.5 at minus 136, the book listed there. Instantly found 2 positive EV bets that we're looking at from the pitching department. Greg, anything that stands out to you on the Odd Shopper board today?
So I guess the game is locked at this point. So I was going to say I like the under 7.5 strikeouts for Max Scherzer. That game has gotten delayed, but I'm checking to see if that's still listed anywhere. It is not. So that was a bet that I felt pretty good about. Max Scherzer making his first start in about 7 weeks. And 7.5 strikeout prop, that just seemed really lofty to me, even though he's an easy matchup against the Reds, because he went 3 1/3 and 4 1/3 innings in his 2 minor league rehab starts. So clearly Max Scherzer's good. I think he's probably going to have success in this matchup against the Reds, but 7.5 strikeouts felt very aggressive for a first start back, but that game's already locked. So I'll go with the number 1 bet that we have right now in Odd Shopper, also a bet that I placed earlier in the day. Nathaniel Lowe, plus 800 to homer. He helped me win a bet the other day, if you remember, Eric. You
Look at that.
We're texting about it. We're just a hilarious one where I had the Rangers over 1.5 runs in the first 5 innings.
Fifth inning, baby.
Yeah, he comes up in the 5th inning in a 1-0 game with a couple outs, launches a solo homer to win that
I guess
bet.
it's lefty.
And right
There it
here,
is.
Nathaniel Lowe going up against Austin Voth, who very bad. Voth has shown nothing at the big league level at any point in his career. And is this a bet that we'd consider a lock or being super high probability? No, but he's plus 800, and that's a really, really long number for a hitter who has power and is in a positive matchup. So Lowe's having a breakout season. He has a career best WRC plus. He's on pace to have a career high in homers. I think that plus 800 makes sense as a home run prop.
Hey, Greg.
Yeah.
We both like that bet.
There we go. I like it.
Shout out EMAC 2024. Let's go. EMAC. That was the dad joke to round it all. What's our like count at? Is it going to be story time as we finish out this show? Something tells me it's not. Come on, people. 382. Barely gotten over 120 likes on this show. That is not going to cut it. If we even got to like 450, I would contemplate telling the story. I said 550. I'm generally a man of my word, but you know what? This is also just not really that big of a deal. Over 450, though, I will tell the story here to round out the show. It's 3 minutes. You don't have much time. Smash it. Otherwise, it's going to have to be saved for another rainy day on another day that I'm probably wearing makeup, which is tomorrow. Cool. Anything else that you're noticing from your lineups? Do you have everything in on your end?
Yeah, I'm all good.
Okay, cool. I just had to get Vlad out. This is a great day to be playing both sites again. Well done, Eric. Always just crushing the game.
So one thing that I will add about our projections, and also probably reason to be a little bit concerned about Yusei Kikuchi in terms of his ownership today. We have, and I know you mentioned this as a bet, but just to really emphasize it, we have as our best pitcher prop bet of the day under 4.5 strikeouts for Yusei Kikuchi. If he's going to be under 4.5 strikeouts against the Oakland A's, which we have happening 56% of the time with it being plus money on the under, it's probably not a pitcher you'd want in your lineup. So I understand why people want to get to Kikuchi today, but I'm shorting him.
Yeah. Kikuchi, no, instead of Kikuchi. I tried. That was forced.
The other
See,
one
it's
was
never
better.
good when it's forced. What?
I said the other one was better.
Yeah, I know it was. I'm refreshing everything here on my end. Oh my God. I actually got some shares of Adrian Martinez. I just want to throw that out there.
Ooh.
I didn't think I was going to do it. I made it kind of it was common in jest, and now it actually happened. I got 4% of him. I just want to throw it out there because that never in a million years would have happened had Vlad Guerrero been in the lineup.
Yeah, I mean, 4%. It's not anything of significance.
Yeah. I'm just saying he was a guy that was not remotely in play for me. And now I just don't want it to be something where he pops up in a winning lineup and then I have to explain that to the people. Oh, you never brought up Adrian Martinez. Well, why would I? Those 4% are gone. Let's be dead serious. But guys, this is a fantastic show once again here. We're getting ourselves up to 4:00 here. We're going to be bouncing out of here. There's nothing else the rest of the day, but tomorrow we'll be back on our grind. Don't forget to check out Greg's betting video that he's doing every single day. Don't forget to check out my betting video that I will be doing every single day in conjunction with Prize Picks as well. So I'll be doing 2 now. Lots of baseball in my life. I love it. I hope you guys love it too. But Greg, any final words for the people as we get out of here?
No, just what Eric said before, because I don't think you really sold your video properly. Eric's doing a breakdown of every single baseball game every day. Eric's rundown. So you guys should really be checking it out. It's fantastic content. He's been doing it every day. Jordan's producing it, which also we got to support the things that Jordan Klein does. So check out the video that Eric does every day. It's up over at Odd Chopper. You guys should be subscribed to if you aren't already. So go check that out.
I get to hang out with sweet baby Jordan Klein more and more. It's never a bad thing for me, baby. Never a bad thing for me at all.
Well, he's going to give you another black eye, and then what?
That's why I'm wearing makeup. Guys, we're going to get out of here. He's Greg Ehrenberg. That's not true. That's just want to clarify. Then he's Greg Ehrenberg. He's really, really funny. I'm Eric. I try my best. I fail a lot. We'll see you guys later.